Give us your feedback. Let us know who you think we should bring on the show, all that good stuff. More importantly, spread the word. We just started this new channel, so we spun this off of my Snake Trap Session channel and brought it into our own channel here, Unfiltered Reptiles Podcast. So welcome to all my new subscribers and whatnot. If you're just joining in, please hit that subscribe button. Greatly appreciated. But yeah, man, we got today a very special guest. A local to me. I think it's sick as shit because we don't have too many locals out here that are doing it like what this guy's doing it right now. But more importantly, you got to say what up to my boy, Stephen Cush and Forrest Fanning over there at Coldblooded Cafe. How you guys doing today, man?
We're doing good.
Pretty good.
How's how you guys feeling about today? How you guys feeling about tonight?
We're feeling good about tonight, man. I mean, going over to Cory's was absolutely amazing. Steven's super excited to go out there the next time we go out for the show. So
for sure,
it's I can think of endless questions to ask Cory. So it's a pretty special interview. I think it's gonna be a good one.
Special interview, special individual. I feel like somebody definitely crucial to the hobby when it comes to monitor keeping. And I kind of want to let him speak for himself at this point. So everybody say what up to Cory. From Toothless Reptiles in San Diego. Okay, notice how I said that, in San Diego.
I did. I noticed.
What's up, Cory?
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Good, man. Good. Welcome onto the podcast. We're excited to have you on. Give us a little introduction. Let us know who you are. You know what I mean? Kind of let the people know exactly what the fuck you got going on over there.
Well, my name's Cory AYMAR. I own Toothless Reptiles here in San Diego, and I work in the aerospace field. I actually work with the government drones for the military, like the Predators and the Reaper drones, all the big ones that shoot missiles at terrorists.
Wow.
And in my free time, I'm a monitor lizard matchmaker. And that's pretty much it.
No, tell us more about your matchmaking, because you got some hell of a matchmaking projects going on over there with your fucking goddamn. I mean, it's overwhelming just thinking about it. But tell us a little bit more about your monitor, matchmaking.
Well, I had basically when I was younger, I grew up with reptiles. So I grew up with a bunch of different kinds of stuff, like iguanas, leopard geckos. All kinds of good stuff. And then my family was always into animals, so I grew up with a potbelly pig. We used to volunteer for Project Wildlife and the possum rescue, so we used to actually rescue possums, myself and my brother, who also breeds reptiles. And he's the one who's been breeding the earless monitors with us. So, and so I was always, in the animal trade, I guess, kind of, but in the animal hobby for sure. Sometimes on the conservation side and the rescue side. And then when I was about 18 years old, I started breeding tegus, and it was a pain in the ass because you have to hibernate them, and I'm in San Diego, so I actually used a room that I had in my house that had its own little air conditioner in there, so I dropped that down to 55 degrees and hibernate them and then breed them after. And I had some issues with hibernating them, and it was just too much work, trying to make sure that the animals were completely cleared out, like their digestive tract. I'm sure Forrest and you guys know, you gotta soak them in warm baths and make sure their digestive tract's completely cleared out before you put them into hibernation. Otherwise, they putrefy and go septic, basically. They rot from the inside out. So I ended up kind of getting into monitors, and I had bought an Argus monitor from Prehistoric Pets, and it was a fucking asshole. And so I took it to Pet Kingdom in San Diego in 2006, I think it was. And I just told them hey, I have this Argus monitor, and this thing was 4 feet by then and would just full on charge me in the cages. And I was like, I don't want anything for it. I just need it out of my house, because the thing started figuring out how to get out of the cages, and I'd come home and I'd have to catch the damn thing. And they had a water monitor there, which is Yoshi. And so I traded that Argus for Yoshi, who's just a normal import water monitor that you can get, you know, that they ship over by the 100 in those boxes where half of them die, and then they sell them for like $100 at your pet store. And I've had her since 2006. She was born in 2004. She's like 17 years old, and that's really what kicked off the monitor species for me.
Wow, that's sick. So basically, what got you transitioned into the Black Dragons? Like, I mean, because I feel like that's kind of your legacy, is those Black Dragons.
Yeah. So what ended up happening was, as soon as I got Yoshi, she started getting big really fast, and she was already a sub-adult when I got her. So I built her a huge enclosure, and I lived in a 3-bedroom house, 2-bath, by myself at the time. I've been pretty successful, you know, my whole life. I graduated high school early. You know, I got into working. I played college football. You know, I've always done extra stuff. So, you know, I had my own house and lived by myself by the time I was, you know, 23. And so I built her this huge enclosure, and she started laying eggs like the first year I had her. And I'm like, oh, that's weird, you know, that they just lay eggs. You know, if you give them a good enclosure and you take good care of them, they just lay eggs, you know. And so I started breeding her to another male that I ended up getting, just a normal. And I would incubate those eggs and hatch them out. And I literally had a guy that would just come get them and take them. And I didn't know anything about reptile breeding or really anything at the time. I didn't know about, you know, I don't even think they had Facebook back then. It was like MySpace.
What year was this?
I want to say like 2007, 2008, when I first started breeding her. And so then I started breeding her to the normals. And then when I finally started getting into, I remember seeing a photo of a black dragon in an egg that had a Vital Exotics logo on the bottom of it. And I was like, oh shit, like that thing is rad, you know?
Right.
And so I ended up getting in contact with Chris at Vital Exotics, and he sent me over a het black dragon. I started breeding that het black dragon to Yoshi, and we were creating, you know, 50% hets. And when you breed a 100% het to a normal, you get 50% hets. So it just means half the clutch is 100% het for black dragon, right. Which is, you know, bullshit, honestly, because the only way you would ever know is to breed them out. So it's a total crapshoot, waste of time if you're going to try to breed a 50% het, just so everybody knows. So I started doing that, and then I started getting into it more and learning about the genetics. And that was when I started kind of like, hey, I should breed a black dragon to a black dragon if I really want to get all black animals. And that het black dragon was a total dick. He was well over 6 feet, and he used to charge me in the enclosures. And one day he went after my female, Yoshi, and Yoshi's part of the family. I mean, she used to walk around the house with my dogs and my tegus, wow. You know, when I was younger. And so I couldn't have that, so I got rid of him. I literally gave him away to anybody who would take him, and I started getting into the black dragons.
Fuck, man. I think at that experience, I think my first experience with any monitor like the size that you keep was when I came over to your house and we first met. So Cory lives in El Cajon, which is, you know, well, used to live in El Cajon. Now he's in Alpine, which is like more like 20 minutes away versus 10, 12 minutes away he lived. But I was fucking, I mean, when I came to your house, that was when you first took in those 7-8 Croc monitors. Yeah. And they were staying in those fucking vision cages or whatever you had. I know you felt so bad, but that was literally right in the transition time of you moving to Alpine. Yeah. And it just feels, I mean, when I went over with Forrest and saw what you had, because you kind of visualized it to me in El Cajon on what your game plan was, and I was like looking at you like, dude, that's fucking insane. Like here in San Diego, and then right. And I was just like, you know, and I believed you because you had the product, like you had all the animals. So I was like, dude, this is gonna be insane. And then finally, when fucking Forrest came over and visit, you know, he came to San Diego 3 times, and on his fucking 4th time, I finally got him to come over. And I think only because he wanted to go to your fucking facility, but whatever.
Man.
He still came over. He said, I'll take it. So he came over. He saw my weak ass collection, and and then we had a great. Went up to your fucking pad, and it was so cool because we couldn't find it at first. And then right when we found it, we said a big ass red barn, and I was like, bro, it was like the fucking Field of Dreams, dude. I was like, oh my god, we got so. Remember how excited we were going into the driveway for
Oh yeah,
we were fucking stoked, dude. Like,
dude,
wow.
I was excited all to have you guys here. I'm like, oh shit, because by that time I had kind of gotten used to it. And then every time I have like people come over and check it out and do tours, and especially when they ask questions, it like brings that love back that I had when I was so motivated to build all this stuff for 3 weeks straight. I took 6 weeks off work to build this facility.
Right.
It's crazy.
Forrest is doctor of questions. So I'm sure he was like, Forrest is excited just to fucking have the opportunity to ask you the questions that he did, man. I mean, I know if I was excited to be there, Forrest was 10 times more excited because, he's monitors is his thing, you know what I mean? Monitors not so much. Your most docile black dragon almost bit my fucking hand off.
Hey, that's kind of your fault though.
I know,
okay, don't put that shit on Onyx.
It's not Onyx. Onyx is a good animal, I just don't.
Dude, she's literally the best monitor I have right now. Probably is Onyx, and that's the only time she's ever done that. And it was literally as soon as she did it, I knew there had to be a reason why, because she's not aggressive.
Me. Yeah, there's
so
something
she
about
just
me.
She saw if you put a camera lens in front of a monitor lizard that's hungry, they think it's an eyeball. They will attack that damn thing.
Yeah, well, lesson learned. Fucking thank God. So dodge that bullet because my hand was really close to that. My hand was holding the phone, so it could have went really bad.
Yeah. She didn't charge though. She just kind of nipped at it. She was more curious than anything.
If she let's say she was an aggressive monitor, bro, I would have been a fucking dead as a doornail, bro. But I said, she was really chill. So Onyx obviously is the docile one. I've seen you. I've held Onyx. I think obviously when I was in El Cajon. But then Dark Knight, man, how do you fucking deal with Dark Knight?
Dude, me and Dark Knight, we have a level of respect. But that's about as far as it goes. People always bring up like, hey, do you think if I work with them, you can get them to calm down? Or, oh, why don't you work with them more? Stuff like that. You have to understand, a lot of these, I treat all the animals as if they're pets. Dark Knight, because he's a total douchebag, does not have any less of a privileged upbringing than any of the other animals. The only difference is that I have to handle him a little more deliberately when I do have to handle him. But it's important to have a goal with animals like that. My goal with Dark Knight was never to make him a tame pet. You don't want to do that, especially when you have a breeding project. If anything, I would like to keep him high-strung. Keep him at a good weight. I don't want to overfeed him to calm him down. That's the worst thing you can do. And then, we have a level of respect where, I use food as an incentive if I need to move him around. When I'm doing cage maintenance, he knows to leave me alone. When I move him around, if I have to take him to the vet or something, he gets the noose. That's what he gets. And a lot of times he knows it's coming, and I've gotten a lot gentler with it. As he's gotten bigger, because he'll just straight up charge me. So, and you can't use a normal snake tong. Like I have the aluminum tongs, but his neck is so big, you can't hook the other side of it. So he just pulls right out of it. So I'll use the tongs sometimes just to grab onto his tail to move him, manipulate him a little bit if I need to. The noose is something I break out just every once in a while, like if I have to transfer cages or try to get him into a tote. And the noose doesn't. Monitor lizards are so robust, especially when you're talking about like a 7-foot male black dragon. They don't give a shit.
No, they don't.
They don't care. No, they could care less. No, they don't care at all.
And then Forrest, you've worked with big monitors. I know you mainly keep tree monitors and stuff, but you've actually had your fair share with big monitors in your life at some point, right?
Well, I mean, I'm still I'm still learning. I'm no expert. I was really inspired by Cory, Kevin, the people that I seen keeping them, just how they were doing it. I remember the Croc monitor video with Cory where it's in the tub and he's kind of teasing it out of the tub, it's walking across your kitchen and stuff, and so I was just amazed by that. And then when I seen how they look as babies, and then I got to like hold one at Joe's down in Miami, I just couldn't even believe it. It just looked like a little dinosaur, and I had talked to people that said, hey, if you work with them from the start and you get an animal with the right personality, and that's a big problem that I've seen with people that want to get monitors, is they want to buy an animal, they just want to get online, buy the animal, and then they want it to be the personality that's going to be social and have the attitude that they want. And they're just like people. Some are assholes, some are super chill, some you can trust, some you can't. But they're also not disposable beings. I mean, they deserve, when you're putting that commitment in, to have a life plan. And so you shouldn't be going and buying a bunch of lizards and then just flipping them to some local flipper, and then the thing dies in an aquarium. So you have to some of them are going to be what if you're like me and you want a socialized monitor. And I learned pretty early on in the monitor community that there's guys that just trash you for wanting to have that relationship with a monitor. They're like, hey, I want them to be like, you're trying to make it something that it's not, and that you're just a piece of shit. You're gonna stress it out. It's not gonna do well because you're just trying to make this animal domesticated, and to me that just didn't make sense. I was like, well, if I raise it from a baby, and I get it used to these behaviors, and I spend time with it every day, then the right individual could be something really special. And to me, like Kilo, my first baby Croc monitor, I really trust her. I really enjoy interacting with her, but I interact with her every day. I go in and I talk to her, maybe give her a little chin rub, and I'm able to do things with her that I didn't think I'd be able to. So I like that. But then I've got a male that started out totally docile and you could handle him, and then all of a sudden he just turns into a psychopath, and I don't know if that's just, I've heard also that they can be very docile and easy to work with when they're younger until they hit breeding, and then when they hit breeding they completely change. Is that true, Cory? Is that something that
I definitely agree that there are some animals that I wouldn't say are a lost cause, but they take a lot more work, and the average person is not going to be able to get out of them what they want to get out of them. Sometimes the animal's potential for socialization is still the same peak potential as every other animal, but there are some animals that start off right below that peak potential, and some animals that start off all the way down here, and it may take 30 years of experience to bridge that gap. So you can't, there's definitely black dragons I've hatched out, and a lot of people can attest to this because I've sent black dragons to education programs, quite a few, and I always tell them, listen, I'm not going to pick your animal yet. I'm going to pick your animal after they all hatch, and based on how they act when I'm working with them when they're all together. Because some of the animals are more curious than they are afraid. Right. And those are the animals that you want. Those are the ones that they react to a schedule. They react to targeting training. They react to socialization because they're not afraid of you. They don't see you as a predator. They see you as something weird that they want to get to know and figure out, and then there's other animals that reclude, and they just don't want to have anything to do with you. And a lot of times they don't even make the connection that when you interact with them that you feed them. Sometimes it takes years for them to figure out, like, oh shit, this guy is a positive aspect of my life. I literally can't live without him. You know. And other animals make that correlation really quickly. So I mean, it's one of those things where what sucks about having a bunch of lizards to sell and doing online sales is that not all the animals are going to be easy to work with. And, you know, more than half the time, those animals end up going to people that don't have enough experience to be able to get those animals to the point that they want them. And they set you know, I don't want to say an impractical goal, but they set a goal that is practical if you understand the amount of work you have to do to reach those goals. And people don't understand how much work you have to do to hit those goals. A lot of times they think that if they just watch these socialization videos and they feed it and it sees them sometimes, and they shove this lizard in the family room where they're going to be exposed, and it's like an exposure therapy style of socialization that's not really based on anything except maybe one guy's random anecdotal experience that he happened to have with one lizard that was probably already predisposed to socialization. Yeah. So, you know, it's like you're taking the best animals and you're throwing this, you know, this bullshit anecdotal way of socializing them, and you think that, you know, causation and correlation are the same thing. You think that the reason that animal is super nice is because you did it this way. And it's not necessarily the case all the time, you know. And I just think that another thing is that people are always really quick to give advice when they've had small amounts of successes.
Right.
And it's like, you know, just because you've had a little bit of success with one animal, it's not going to work for every animal, and it's not going to work for every, you know, for every person, every keeper. No. You know, like I can't work with these animals every day. Like I will come in here every day and do chores, but I'm not messing with them. And honestly, I don't want to. There's a reason why I have 16 4K cameras with color night vision in this building. Right. I want them to be left alone to do their own thing. And there's a reason why their largest enclosure is over 3,000 cubic feet, because I want to see what they do in a large space. You know, I want to be able to observe without affecting.
It's like almost keeping aquatic, like an aquatic fucking fish tank or some shit. You know what I mean? It's, you know, they're like, you have to enjoy them from afar and let them do their fucking thing. It's not something where you can make a petting zoo out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, even the earless monitors, and earless monitors are a really good example. Earless monitors, a lot of people don't realize, but they're nocturnal and they're super sensitive to stressors. So even when we feed them, I have, my brother and I have a red filter flashlight on our foreheads, and we feed them at night. So we are like tweakers in the room, and we're like feeding these earless monitors, and they're like gator rolling earthworms, and they're the craziest things to deal with. But during the day, you have to leave them be. That's just the animals that they are. You can't expect the animals to adapt to captivity. You have to adapt your captive keeping techniques to the animal. That's how it always has been. That's how it always should be. And I don't think it's that big of that alien of a concept to understand. I just think that people's mentality needs to flip to being on the animal side, and not that this animal needs to conform to me. I need to conform to the animal. I just think there needs to be a lot more respect for the animal, because, you know, we sell these things as commodities. You know, these animals have no worth outside of hobbies. They don't produce milk. They don't produce meat. You know, not in the United States anyway. They eat these fuckers in Thailand. Oh, yeah. But, you know, so we take them on as accessories and we treat them as such, and I don't think that's fair.
I agree.
No, it's not. That's one thing that that was really inspiring about why I wanted to come to your place so bad, is because I started, as I got all these different things, my desires kind of shifted from collecting for ego and chasing down thinking I'm going to make money and all these things to having a smaller collection that I cared about, and then being committed to those animals is long term. Not jumping in and out of things, and like it almost bothers you when people say hobby. I say it too, but it's like
It's a lifestyle.
yeah, it's just like it's not something you should hop in and out of like a video game or something. It's like you get this amazing animal, especially if it's wild caught, and you get it established, and you get it through this miracle of everything it had to go through, and it made it, and then all of a sudden you're just like, whatever, I'm gonna get rid of it, and then you go drop it off at the pet store, give it to this guy or that guy, and they're probably not gonna succeed with it. I mean, we look at the numbers of animals that are coming in, and then we know they're not a good majority of them aren't making it, and so now we've with like what Cory's doing with Croc monitors. I mean, if all of a sudden he starts cranking these things out,
there's gonna be some pissed off
we're gonna
people.
have a source of captive-born babies we've never
pissed.
had before. So what's that?
I said if Cory starts cranking out Croc monitors, Nerd's gonna be fucking pissed.
Well, I think Nerd and these other guys, I think as far as I know right now, they're selling the Indo captive hatch babies, and
I hope Cory starts pumping them out. I'll be so stoked. I'll be fucking doing it.
But nobody wants to sell them. No matter what, those animals aren't going to go for nothing, and they shouldn't go for nothing, because you want somebody to show that, I mean, if you can't spend a couple $1,000s on the monitor, how are you going to spend? I mean, look what Cory spent.
So check this out. So we're talking about Cory's dealing with the exact same thing we're talking about here, and his fucking animals are $3,000 animals. So you have these people that are buying these fucking $3,000 animals, chipped and chipped, and they don't know what the fuck they're doing, or they don't do enough research or understand, like, you know what I mean, it's just insane. We're not talking about a fucking $200-$300 snake, or something in that price range. We're talking about $3,000. You know what I mean? That's, in my eyes, that's not peanuts.
Well, then they do the same thing though with the worst ones are the $50 water monitors that get 6 feet, or the Nile monitors that are just brought in by the thousands. Where who do you see like Cory building enclosures like that for them? I mean, it's not that there aren't keepers that do it. There are, not like Cory's. I mean, his is insane, but they build appropriate enclosures and they care. But 9 times out of 10, it's just like the American alligators. Like you go to a show in the out in Kentucky or something, or one of these states, and they're just selling American alligators for $20-$30, and it's like, what's going to happen to those? Like it's so
shish kebab.
Yeah.
Well, the worst thing I see, is there's like no happy medium. Here's what sucks, is there's no way to put enough of a financial burden on someone to make them good at keeping reptiles. You have to do the work. There's no amount of money that can make you a professional NFL player. You have to do the work. There's no amount of money that could make you the world champion in MMA. You have to do the work. So when I see that people have these Nile monitors and they treat them like throwaways because they're $50, and they throw them in a 10-gallon fish tank that they get from Petco, but then on the opposite side of the spectrum, we have people who spend $2,800 on a black dragon from me, but then they place such a high value on that investment having the potential to pay off that they push that stress onto the animal, and furthermore, they push it onto the breeder as, oh, my lizard's acting weird. I was really hoping he'd be, puppy dog tame and blah, 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 and he's doing this and he's doing that. And I'm like, dude, I just fucking shipped him to you yesterday.
Yeah, give him fucking Jesus.
Like, fuck, you have, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
And it's just people don't have any other experience to be able to gauge whether they're moving in the right direction. And they don't have enough experience to pick up on the little nuances that are positive breaks in development. Like that animal backing up only 3 steps away instead of 4 steps away that it was doing yesterday. or, you know, this animal really is eating, it's just eating the crickets in the cage, and that's why it's not eating the hard-boiled eggs that you keep putting in there. Okay, so you need to check the water, because there's going to be cricket heads in the water if it's eating crickets. So that's how you know it's eating. You don't need to keep shoving food in there and then stressing it out thinking that it's not eating. It's an animal. It's not going to choose death over eating the food that's in its cage.
At the end of the day.
So, you know, at a certain point, it is going to choose to eat. So regardless, you know, I just think there's a lot of impatience, and to be perfectly honest, I am super impatient. And the monitor lizards, to be even more honest, I've had tons of hobbies. You know, I still race cars. I used to race score off-road with my brothers all the time. Shifter carts when I was younger, you know, college sports, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, MMA, rock climbing. You know, like I've always done all this stuff.
Skateboarder?
Oh, yeah.
Those pictures were hard.
I was sponsored, but I wasn't pro. All right.
That's so sick.
Okay.
You know, like monitor lizards has been able to keep my attention longer than anything else. And I think that's a testament just to the fact that I have such a detail mentality. There is always something to do in the lizard cages. There's always something to improve. There's always some new gadget I want to try out. There's always somebody contacting me about another project, or somebody DMs me on Instagram and asks me a question, and it throws me into a fucking rabbit hole of research on Google. You know, like there's always something to do. I just don't understand why people would not want to do the research. I just literally don't get it.
They want shortcuts. They just want the success. They don't understand the journey. They don't, you know.
Yeah, it's nuts. You know, that's another reason why I didn't release any of the information on the hybrid project, because I know that people just want to know whether the animals are hybrids, and then that's it. That's all they're going to talk about. They're never going to read the fucking study that I've been shoveling out thousands of dollars for this DNA testing. And I have the biologist, Tony Abruzzi, writing an entire article on all of the DNA testing results that we've had in the last 2 years. Yeah. You know, everybody's just going to, I already know when I post that information up, people are just going to write in the comments, so are they hybrids or not? You know, like that's it. That's all they're going to write. And that's going to be the end of it. It's going to be stupid.
You already know what they're going to come with.
Yeah. You know, and it's along the same basis of the shortcuts.
Right. Pretty much. Now, you know, how long have you been working with the universities for now, Cory?
I want to say a few years. So we used to do some DNA sexing stuff through Avian and Exotics Animals Hospital with Jeff Jenkins. There was a lady named Joy who owned a company called Joy of DNA. They actually, she retired a few years back, and she actually invented DNA sexing at UC Davis, like 30 years ago. So what was really, really cool, and a lot of people don't know this, I had to talk with Daniel Bennett about this as well. I spoke to him on the phone. But Joy was at UC Davis, and she was trying to get funding to fund the DNA sexing development to try to figure out how to do DNA sexing on avian species. Well, there was a turkey farm that was local around UC Davis. Right. And they used the turkey farm to fund everything. Well, as you know, turkeys are used in a lot of parthenogenic projects because they have the same WZ chromosome sets as monitor lizards. So there was already kind of a base, if you will, for using sexing in monitor lizards. And in fact, it was the very first base ever created in DNA sexing. So her husband actually taught genetics at UC Davis. I don't know if he's there anymore. But then I reached out to UC Davis after, and Rob Gran, who's the head of the veterinary genetics research lab over there, he started messing with some of the Komodo primers for sexing for the Komodos that they use. Because the LA Zoo and Zoogin, I don't think it's called Zoogin anymore. But they actually sex the Komodo dragons while they're still in the egg. I think I was telling Forrest and you guys about this last time you were here. And so they were messing around with some of those primers. And I had started reaching out to Therion DNA, who was also recommended by Dr. Jenkins and Joy, who's William Gergitz over in New York. And I reached out to them for the genetic relatedness testing for the parthenogenesis. So, you know, it's been probably 3 years that I've been working with Therion and sending samples to UC Davis. But we were doing DNA stuff before then with Joy of DNA. She had ran some samples for us. Dr. Jenkins has been a huge part of keeping me on the cutting edge of a lot of stuff, especially when, you know, that what's cool about what I do is I have a normal job, and so I fund all stuff with my normal job. So when I have something that, like, if Dr. Jenkins is interested in something, I'm interested too then, because I know I have somebody who has 30 plus years of veterinary experience in avian and exotics that will help me out and kind of push everything through. So to me, that is not a waste of money or a waste of resources. So when they're trying to figure out sexing via ultrasound or via x-ray or via DNA, you know, I'm game. I will bring in animals. I will capture my giant crocs and throw them in totes. And, you know, and I will do all that stuff just to make that happen, because I think all those little side projects are fun.
Now, let me ask you this. I mean, like, out of pocket, typically, if you wanted to, like, let's say, hey, I have monitors and I want to try to work with the university, it's not that easy, right? I mean, how the fuck how do you plug something up like that?
So what's really funny is there's some other people who say that they're working on private projects with universities for blah, 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 and they can't talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
Universities can't do that. Okay, you can't pay a university to do anything for you. You can pay a private company that may work with a university, like Zoogen Labs and all the outside labs that maybe runs their samples at the university or whatever. But universities cannot take money from you. So nobody is paying a university to do private projects. They don't do that shit. It's illegal. So you know, honestly, it's a matter of reaching out, sending emails, and letting people do their research and kind of background check you, you know, and then on top of that, obviously making charitable contributions to certain places. So, you know, it's, listen, if I would have approached the university and I would have had a bunch of monitor lizards in drawers that were full of mites, they wouldn't want to do shit with me.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I approached the university, I talked to them, and I had already had some projects going with Therion DNA at this point. So it was an interesting exchange, and it sparked an interest with the university. So, you know, it's more of an exchange of excitement that gets these people, you know, wanting to work with you on certain stuff. And honestly, it's been a huge blessing and a huge resource the entire time that I've been in the reptile trade.
Right.
It's just easy to see with the facility and everything that I'm not trying to get this information so I can benefit from it.
Right.
I want to get this information so I can share it.
Yep.
You know, and
I
even
always
with
thought
the
that about
Therion
you.
stuff.
That's really cool about you, man. It really is. Because I mean, I feel
one thing, you know, we've.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, just like one thing, you know, we've got to go around and meet some, you know, some of the top herpetologists at different universities and stuff. Just people that I never thought I'd get to meet, and talking with them and you know, hearing their opinion of the private sector, the zoo field. You know, they seem to have a really low opinion of the zoo field a lot of times, and you know, it seems like all three sectors hate each other. And but one thing that the academics we talk to tell us is how much valuable data we could be contributing if we made the effort to do it. You know, I mean, here we are working with all these different animals, and if we take you know the right kind of data that they need, you know, any one of us could discover or help discover or help, you know, forward husbandry by paying attention to what we're doing. You know, I mean, you can't really do it with just, you know, one or two animals. You got to have a more of a group of them, but the people that I talk to, they seem like, they want there to be a private sector, and the people that do things professionally like Cory just have a ton to offer. I mean, there's a lot of citizen science that can contribute to, they don't have a lot of money for herpetology programs. They don't have a lot of money to set up rooms full of Croc monitors and figure the ins and outs of reproduction, or I mean, they're just such incredible animals. So if there's a way that you can take down that data and keep it organized and stuff, I think and that's something why I just think what Cory's doing is so awesome, because like he said, he's not just trying to puppy mill out black dragons. He's trying to learn about the animals. He's always had this scientific interest and been able to link up with really, really awesome people. And so that's that's a lot bigger accomplishment to me, to be a part of something like that, than it is make a bunch of money or get a bunch of attention. Because it's tough when you work with these like really these animals with these really difficult requirements, crocodilians, monitors, stuff like that, and you're on social media and people see what you're doing, and you're they think that you're living their dream.
Yeah, so they bash you for it.
And I try to talk to every one of them, but I usually end up telling them something along the lines of, go Cory's route, go get an awesome career, be financially sound, and then then
live your dream.
By then you'll probably figure out what you really want to do, have some mentors and stuff. But no, they want to come up in the show scene and make all their money flipping and stuff like that. And it's a tough world in the reptile business. So I don't know. That's
yeah, what's weird is, especially with social media, like the statistics of social media, 2% of its users account for 80% of its engagement. So it is literally the overwhelming minority of people on the internet, and which is why on all of my personal platforms, we do not tolerate negativity. You're more than welcome to question my methods. I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. Even the DNA stuff and the parthenogenesis stuff and the hybrid stuff, I've always posted my personal cell phone number on everything. And you know how many of the people who question my shit call me? Zero.
None.
Because they don't want to know the truth. They don't want to have a conversation. They don't have the intellect to have a conversation, number one. And number two, it wouldn't be a big drama thing like it is on the internet when you type something and it lasts forever. And what sucks about the reptile trade and private, dealing with science also, which is why, the herpetologists probably have an issue, is, the people that are in the trade, a lot of them throw out these anecdotal bullshit outcomes and they explain them off as if they're scientific fact, and it is just horrible. Like when I started the hybrid project, I had people messaging me, oh, well, I did that 4 years ago. Like, oh, cool, do you have any pictures? Well, no. Then what the fuck? Then you didn't do it. I can go on your Instagram feed right now and get a picture of what you fucking ate for breakfast, but you don't have a picture of a fucking world's first hybrid that you produced 4 fucking years ago. You just have this anecdotal BS that you just so happen to remember when somebody else comes along and has all the documentation and video footage to back up everything that they're doing. It just seems extremely convenient, It's just and that kind of sums up where a lot of the people in the reptile trade are. And I don't mean to like blanket statement everybody in there, because there are some good apples, but for the most part, a lot of the guys that have been doing it a while, and I won't name names, but his name's Kevin, he's been doing it a certain way for so long, you almost become defensive when you see new data. you know, and no offense to what he's doing, but he does this for a living, so I can see exactly why he fights the way that he does. I would do the same thing if I thought that my credibility in a field that I feed my family with was going to be destroyed over some scientific and being left behind for people that are actually doing research in a field that I'm supposed to be somewhat of an expert in. I mean, I totally understand that. And to be perfectly honest, when I look at Kevin's setups and, you know, full transparency, I don't have anything against Kevin, and I don't know what he has against me aside from the fact that I've been bringing up new stuff that people have just been kind of throwing around for so many years that is just not true based on science that has been established over more than a decade. But I see that the way that people take care of and breed snakes, and they put them in drawers. And then when I think about the way that he takes care of his monitors, it is literally the exact same thing. You know, it's a minimalistic attitude based on minimal production expectations. You know, if you can produce enough animals in a small space to get your nut every year, then why expand? There's too much risk involved in expanding because you don't know which animals are going to take to the expansion. Honestly, if those animals have been stuck in a closet for that long, they could be stressed out for a year or two with all that huge space. I had the exact same thing happen with the Croc monitors when I put them in the huge enclosures. They didn't know what the hell to do with themselves, and they sat in a corner for 3 weeks before they even ventured out to drink out of the river. So, you know, it's just one of those things where I completely understand, you know, the way that he does things. And a lot of people like to put us together as if we're competing with each other. But to be honest, we're coming at a similar area, but from two polar opposite sides. You know, I'm coming at this from an idea of making a hobby produce for me so I can sustain my hobby. And I think Kevin is coming out from a side where he's trying to do as little as he can to produce as much as he can because there is a bottom line involved, just like with any business owner. I think to some degree, if I was trying to do what Kevin's doing, I probably wouldn't be doing it that much different, you know, but I'm just not trying to do that. Right. So I don't necessarily think it's fair to compare us in a way where, you know, I have my lizards in fucking 16-foot tall enclosures with full-size live trees. There's a goddamn king palm tree in a 16-foot tall king palm tree in my fucking Croc enclosure.
It's a mini Jurassic Park in there. It's fucking so sick.
It literally is.
I love it.
I wouldn't expect anybody else to do this, let alone Kevin. He's doing fine with the stuff that he has. I might not agree with the methods that he uses, and I might not agree with his opinions on certain things, and they are that. They are opinions.
Right. We all have them.
Yeah, you know, they're like hemipenes. We all got them. And, you know,
at least two.
Yeah. And so, so, you know, like it's just weird because with the herpetology stuff, most people don't document shit. And no herpetologist is going to take a hobbyist at their word, especially based on the fact that they're not one of their peers. They're not educated. Yeah. Most of the people who do this reptile stuff for a living aren't good at anything else. You know, there's a chosen few people who have successful businesses and successful careers outside of this, and they keep it a hobby, you know, like Chris Murray and, you know, John Adrana. And, you know, they're very successful in their own right, and they do this stuff for fun. And that takes a lot of the stress off of trying to make your animals produce. I mean, my single black dragon Onyx, who's the only black dragon I have now, that was a strategic move because Onyx lays 20 fertile black dragon eggs at a crack, and she will lay eggs every 2.5 to 3 months. And that animal is in a decent sized enclosure. So if I'm producing 4 times as many black dragons with a single animal than somebody else is producing with 15 females at their disposal, but only one of them is predisposed enough to the stressors that they're introducing that animal to actually produce anything, they're just for rocking that animal out and just using that animal up for the year, and it's producing what are other people getting? 8 to 12 eggs at a time, twice a year? That is insane. I don't understand how people are getting such low production and not recognizing it as an issue that needs to be resolved.
Yeah.
100%.
No, and I think, and hopefully we can have Kevin on here, also just to like, give his, a lot of what I understand from Kevin's story and just watching it over the years, and it is so different when you're trying to have a reptile-only business. I mean, there's been very few people that have been able to do it, and just the lifestyle of chaos and the stress, the employees, the facility maintenance, there's so much that goes into it. And then there's also this, he went through that period where they're all making all this money off ball pythons, and so he buys a $1 million building, and he has a pet store, and he has all these different dream animals, that he always wanted to work with. And then, I went through it too, kind of similar, just without all the ball python money and stuff. But I was like, all right, I'm going to have a rodent business. That's going to be my main thing. And then I'm going to follow my dream and start building this collection of diverse species. And then you get yourself into it, and all of a sudden it's like, how could you keep data? How could you, not just be running around like a madman all the time trying to keep your shit together? So, you have to, and you only learn that through experience. Like when you meet a new person that gets into reptiles, they literally want to buy, I'm going to go to every show. They want to get some new animal that is totally good.
Yeah.
They want to get a Goliath bird eater. They want to get a blood python. They want to get whatever. And instead of like thinking about it and then like having a realistic goal, I think that the problem is overall is a lot of us, we get too many things going on, and then we don't get the chance to learn from any of them, and then it's not as enjoyable. I think it's just like, I think our idea of what the amount of animals a person can keep, whether a private keeper or a business like that, I think that it's that it needs adjusted, because it I don't know, only people that have, and I know almost every mass producer in the country, and I've heard their stories, and I know the pain they've went through, and some of them were able to figure out how to McDonaldize it, as Bill Brandt, from Gourmet Rodent always liked to say, where, he's got one person, or he had one person where their job is doing water bowls, one person is full-time ultrasounding, one person is full-time doing every little task, and it's like, that works. But when you've got these, kind of these, I don't know, younger people, it's kind of a social scene, and then I don't know, it seems, I bet Kevin's place, I bet he's become really skilled over the years at managing people, and it'd just be interesting to hear the things he's went through, because
because he's
absolutely, and he's set, he's, without Kevin, I don't think I would be as interested in monitor lizards as I am now. I mean, straight up, without Kevin McCurley, and without Chris at Vital, and Jim Heck, who was at Vital as well, and I didn't really know who those people were when I was looking at Nerd's website, their old one they used to have back in the day, or, Vital Exotics website, looking at their photos, and they had those photos of their big water monitors, like swimming through that like pond, that was like in the open field, without those guys, I wouldn't be doing any of this stuff. And it's not
exactly,
I don't want to say that the reason why I do what I do is because I'm competing against those guys, because it's not. But I can see how, to play to Forrest's point, I can see how people kind of plateau in taking care of animals, and they just kind of lose interest, because you see, let's say you see a guy like Brian BARCZYK, and this has nothing bad to do with Brian BARCZYK. He does, a ton of snakes, and I watch his videos. I like his attitude. He's always super positive. But But when you see somebody who takes care of 1,000 or 1,000,000 snakes like he does, it's you feed the animals, you change their water, you change their food, and that's it. But that is because he has 1,000 fucking snakes. It is not because that is what he would want to give that snake if he could. You know, as somebody who's in the reptile trade, we all start. Kevin started as just some kid who loved the animals. Brian started as just some kid who loved the animals. We have all just kind of gotten to this point where we, not me necessarily, but a lot of us have gotten to a point where we had to decide whether we were going to compromise for business to make our dreams come true of selling animals for a living. But then other people look at that and they think that that's what they should be doing without taking into account the overall goal of somebody who's literally producing hundreds of thousands of snakes a year. Where you have 3 ball pythons, you can give those animals more care and you can give them a bigger cage. You don't have to put them in a snake rack in your bedroom, you know, like you can put them in a tank and handle them. Yeah. So I think, you know, some people get into the trade because they want a result, and I don't think that's a good idea. I think you need to get into the trade because you want to take care of the animal and you like the husbandry behind it and the challenges that it produces. You know, like I love building these stupid cages. You know, I loved designing this pond system that has a flowing river and a sump on the other end. There's literally all these cages all have a single pond system, and yet the animals can't swim through the river to get to the other cages. It's an awesome thing, and it took, you know, a while to figure it out. And it took a lot of brainstorming to figure out what materials I needed to use to make sure that they would work, you know, and all those little problems, you know, with a background in engineering is like, you know, all of them are super fun to deal with. And it's exciting when I come home and the lizard has completely destroyed his enclosure. You know, because I know that he's used his enclosure. There's nothing worse than when I come home and the cage looks exactly the same as it did the day before, and I know that lizard hasn't moved because I didn't get motion alerts on my phone throughout the day. I'm like, fuck, man. Like, I really wanted that guy to use that other feature I put in last weekend, you know? Yeah. Like, it plays to my meticulous nature, so I enjoy it. But, you know, I think Kevin and a lot of the guys are just doing something different. You know, I don't necessarily think it's wrong.
It's definitely different because he has, like, other than the monitors, like, he has some of the nicest fucking animals that, you know, you can't even find anywhere else in the United States, you know? I mean, so he has a lot going on, period. You know what I mean? He definitely has a lot going on versus where you're just fucking dialed in on your fucking what? How many enclosures do you have? I think like 8, right? How many are behind you?
7, I think.
7?
Yeah. So I just have 7 of the big ones, and then I have 2 of the other ones. And that's like really all I work with. Like I don't have a bunch of lizards, you know? I have like 10 lizards in here. And it's like, yeah, I don't think there's an advantage to quantity over quality. I think it's the other way around if people just haven't caught on yet.
Yeah. I think so.
Well, and, you know, like, you look at BARCZYK, I mean, you know, I was there when he was producing 30,000 snakes, and you know, I was there on a regular basis just seeing everything that was going down and the stress and the pain and, you know, how, you know, payrolls 50, 60 grand, and if we don't make this big sale, what are we going to do? And it was just, you know, that level of stress is just insane. And then, you know, luckily he had, you know, put so much into the social media, and he had this dream of the Reptarium, and I was with him going down to Texas designing cages and just kind of watching that dream come together for him. And then he sells off, you know, most of his collection, and now, you know, I don't even know I don't think he has 1,000 reptiles. I mean, he probably has a few hundred downstairs, and the leopard geckos upstairs probably put him in the thousands. But I mean, it's just like nothing compared to what it was, and now he's spending all his time in the Reptarium. That's, you know, it's just 2 rows of amazingly built cages, and now he is interacting with it. He's getting to do what he and he's just having so much more fun, and he's not dealing with all the drama of having to retail out so many animals and deal with the drama of just strictly relying on reptile sales. He's got people just coming in that wanna experience reptiles. So I've seeing him on both sides of it and seeing his happiness, it definitely definitely makes you think. And I think people just should think before they start, because why do you get into it and then a month later you have a business plan? Like why is it a business? Like, why aren't you going to
doing it out of the
IHS? Why aren't you meeting professors? Why aren't you reading all of the newest eco books from Bob Ashley? Why aren't you really, like, for me, when I stopped reading stuff on the internet and I started reading scientific journals and understanding, hey, is this, and not that journals can't be, they make mistakes too, but at least, like, that information, I'm not educated and I can still interpret that information, and it's such good information. So when I started doing that, and I feel like new people can do that too. And then because to reference Bill Brand, I'm sure I've said this on other podcasts before, but when I went to him, he's the biggest reptile breeder. He's kind of a mentor to everybody that does this for a living, and he was just joking around about how I thought, because everybody plays with their calculator, and it's like, all right, if I breed this many of them, they're gonna sell for this price. I'm gonna make this much.
Yeah.
And he looks at
literally counting your eggs before they hatch.
Yep. And I'm even like so negative. Like, I literally go whatever that is, and then go 15 to 25%. Most people think 70, 80%, but I'd rather be surprised. But he just looks at me with this smirk, and he goes, the calculator lied, didn't it? And it's like, yeah, you're damn right it did. Like, it lies every time. It's
that was one of the reasons behind me deciding to wholesale the black dragons out. I don't know if you guys saw, but Josh Ortiz, who used to run Nerd, coincidentally, he's my wholesale buyer on all the black dragons now. So if you don't buy one from me, before they hatch or start hatching in March, they're all going to be sold through Josh. And that was along kind of the same lines. I'm tired of dealing with, dude, 90% of the people I deal with are fine and they're easy to deal with. But I spent a lot of time making a care sheet on our website, and people just flat out don't read it. Or they read the first sentence and then they ask questions. And it's all, I always tell them, read the care sheet, then call me.
Read it.
Just read the care sheet, then call me.
Jesus.
And, the first thing I'll see is like, oh yeah, I read the care sheet. I'm thinking about getting a 60-gallon aquarium. I'm like, what is the first two sentences of the care sheet say?
Says, stupid.
The first two sentences say, don't use an aquarium.
Or let's get into the next one. What about the substrate? What about the fucking substrate? You tell them not to use certain substrates.
Yeah, and like I tell people, I'm gonna get cocoa bark.
Go over.
What was that for us?
We're getting requests in the chat room, to kind of have that, just his philosophy on how to keep monitors. So husbandry.
Let's talk about the substrate then. Talk about the substrate that you would recommend for that monitor. Like, so for instance, like what's that cocoa? There's that cocoa chip, right? There's that fucking premium shit out there. It's like fucking $30 a block. Bullshit, but anyways, $30 a fucking block of some shit. But anyways, you don't recommend it for monitors, right?
No, so the issue you have with monitors, and this is probably the reason why Brian BARCZYK's cocoa stuff is buffered and filtered, so it's kind of pre-sifted, I think his stuff is. So the fibers in coconut bark are very abrasive, and the micron count is actually pretty small. So what happens is they get into the respiratory tract of the animals, they get stuck in there, and monitor lizards don't have a sinus. So they don't have a way of filtering that stuff out like we do, where we get boogers and we have a wet nose and shit gets stuck in there before it goes into our lungs. That doesn't happen with a lot of monitor lizards. So, you know, if you're not keeping the substrate soaked, there is no advantage to using coconut bark. Especially with the monitor lizards, you cannot keep that substrate soaked. If you fill that cage with coconut bark and you have a basking area of 130 degrees, how are you going to keep that wet? It's not going to stay wet. It's going to dry. And as soon as it dries out, you have a lizard that's digging, creating dust, and they're in a box of respiratory death. So they have 0 to no air circulation. They're in a box of dust, and literally, especially with the babies, and we've had this happen in Indonesia. I've talked to some people in Indonesia who keep animals in the, you see it all the time in the Indonesian coast. They're like the cocoa blocks that are all in the bottom of the lizard cages.
Yeah. And
you end up with animals where they end up dying, and then you do a necropsy on them, and their lungs are underdeveloped and packed full of coconut fiber. I see the same thing happen in monitor lizards, where they literally just stop growing and then they suffocate to death. You know, they become inactive because their lungs can't sustain enough oxygen in their body, and then they just die. So I always recommend don't use coconut fiber, and I strictly use cypress mulch. And then obviously in the large enclosures like we have, that's all open dirt. So that's all sandy soil. And that soil obviously is heavy enough to where it's not going to create a dust. The enclosures are gigantic, so you're not going to have a huge dust plume of death. And then on top of that, there's a misting system in the enclosures that mist for an hour at a time, 4 times a day. So all of that dust is getting kicked down regardless. So, you know, you have to take into account the environment that you're putting the animal in. If you're going to put something toxic in there, it's getting put in a box that it can't escape from. So you have to be responsible. You're responsible for that. You know, a lot of our care sheet, well, our entire care sheet is designed to keep your animal from going into shock when it gets to your house. That's the way that I take care of the animals here, because you figure, and Forrest, you've bred a bunch of stuff, you figure if you take an animal out of a 100% humidity and 80-degree constant temperature environment, meaning the incubator, and you throw it into an enclosure where it now has a temperature range, lower humidity, and it's got a nighttime cool down, you're shutting off the lights at night, that animal's gonna go into shock. It would be next to impossible for it not to go into some form of shock. So basically my care sheets are set up in a way that at least to some degree mimic somewhat of the environment that they are incubated in. So you're kind of continuing that animal's development even after it's left the egg, which I think is a very rational way to look at how you should set up an enclosure for a newborn animal. You know, that's how I came to that conclusion. I don't know why that's not more self-explanatory, but that's basically what our care sheet is all about, because this is not an all-inclusive care sheet of how you should take care of animals till the end of time until they perish 20 years later in your care. This is how the animal needs to be cared for when it goes to your house, so that way the only thing that it has to adapt to is the new environment, meaning you as a keeper and your caging as it looks, not necessarily the new environment as that environment is affecting its biologics, as in temperature, UV, and everything else. So, I mean, I think our care sheets are set up to relieve an amount of stress from the animals, so that way they have less stress to deal with when they get there. But, you know, on another note, like, that's how I take care of the adults also. I mean, the reason that they cycle so many times in a year is because I keep their cages warm. Their heat never shuts off. You know, is another person like Kevin or whoever willing to keep heat lamps going all the time knowing that it's going to cost you double in electricity? Probably not. Not when you're being marginally successful and getting 2 clutches a year and you're happy with that. For me, it keeps the animals producing, but more than that, it keeps metabolism going. I mean, you have to understand that your animal is becoming adapted to you as a keeper, so you have to keep that in mind. In the wild, these water monitors are eating very early in the morning. Water monitors are notoriously known for early eating. So they go out, they hunt, they attack shit, they kill it, they eat it, and then they bask all day. I have a normal job, so I don't get off work until 3. And then by the time I get home, take a shower, thaw food, I feed the animals, it might be 6 p.m. If I was shutting the lights off at 8 p.m. like they do, I'm giving that animal 2 hours of heat before I put it in a cold box and just let it go septic overnight, and then it's playing catch up for the next 3 days before it eats again, metabolically, that makes no sense. So unless you're feeding your animals in the morning, you're not keeping their metabolism going. You're literally stunting their growth. So you have to keep, for me, the way I think about it, you have to keep a heat source in the enclosure at all times. And you don't want a light emitting heat source because you don't want the lights on all night. That's ridiculous. I mean, full disclosure, my true up bill at the end of the year, even with my solar, and we've only been running this building for what, 8 months now or so, is over $15,000. That's just for electricity. So if you're talking about, hey, you're making all this money, you're selling black dragons, you're breeding this, you're breeding that. No, you're not. No, you're not. Especially the way that I keep the animals. I mean, this facility was 140 grand. I haven't stopped spending money on it since. The only animals that are in here that have been producing eggs is literally Onyx. She's the only one on my side right now. She may have attacked MJ, but she is on my side.
I still love Onyx, dude. Onyx gets the pass. Dude. Onyx, I'll let that bitch fucking. I'll just stay out of her way and let her just keep producing. Because I am gonna eventually have. I'm gonna have one of her babies here in the next couple months anyway. So.
And I'd love to hook you guys up with them. That'd be my plan. I'd love to donate some animals to, like a zoo. Also, I mean, even if Brian wanted one for his zoo, hit me up. I don't care. It'd be something cool to do, and it might get our name out there a little bit more. It doesn't matter to me. I don't hold grudges. At my age, I don't have the, I don't have the luxury of carrying resentments anymore. So it's all in fun, and I'm not involved in any of that other shit. I don't go on the forums. I don't do anything. None of those people that talk shit online are here helping me clean these cages. I do all this stuff by myself all the time. I have to climb these trees in these enclosures and get a hold of 8-foot crocs who want to kill me by myself in a building. It is not safe. That part is not fun.
It
is exhilarating,
going up
but
to
it's not fun.
To the deck in the enclosure. I don't know what I was more scared of, the male croc monitor up top or.
Oh man, that thing was scary. Dude,
I know, but it's like it's so tall. Like how tall is the deck? 16?
Dude, he was 7.5 feet at least. That guy was fucking monstrous, bro.
Yeah, my big male is he's like 7'8", I think is what he's at.
That was the one that with the you had the GoPro and he jumped down. Oh man. I'm gonna put that.
He fucking hates everything. That's what sucks is you don't know whether he's gonna leap from somewhere when you're in the cage. So you can never be between. You can never be have him between you and the door, even if he's in the basking area, because he'll leap down on top of your ass. So every time he moves suddenly, I'm like, oh shit, and I just book it for the door. Like, fuck.
That's so gnarly, bro. That's
so
gnarly.
It's bad. He's gonna get me one day. I know it, dude. He's behind me right now. Talking shit. I know he is.
He's just unlatched the door.
Fucking guy.
That's how I feel with the one mean croc I have, and then the tricolor. I feel like the tricolor is gonna just destroy me one of these days. And I don't know, the tricolor, it bites on and it won't let go for like 10 minutes sometimes onto a glove even. It holds on with everything it has, and you take the glove off, you put it in its enclosure, and it's still holding the glove, and you're just like trying to imagine that pain, you know, like.
Fucking God. Jesus.
I made a post not too long ago about people using leather gloves, and I thought it was so obvious that I didn't need to bring it up. And this is nothing against you, Forrest, but you know, people were trying to handle baby lizards with leather gloves on, and I'm like, you do realize you have food on your hands. Like, those are leather gloves. You can literally digest leather gloves, like if you ate them in a survival situation. Like, Jesus, is nuts.
Wow. I did not know that. What about like hex armor gloves for like venomous snakes and stuff?
Yeah, those are fine. I honestly like, I wear leather gloves when I handle the big animals, but they're never trying to go after my hands. They'll go after my face, you know, because
that's how it always is.
So, you know, if I'm dealing with a baby, you're shoving your hand in the enclosure. That's all it sees. So it's going after your hand. But with the bigger animals, like, I'm not using anything special. I mean, I have Kevlar lined gloves and Kevlar sleeves, but they still tear. So you're still going to get penetrated, you know, especially by a Croc monitor. And the lace, dude, the lace monitors, you know, I have 2 lace here and I have another 2 coming in the beginning of January. And their claws are way sharper than the Croc monitors.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I always thought, you know, the Crocs were going to be worse, but I think the Crocs are just, maybe they're more active on the ground or less active. I don't know. It's nuts. But yeah, the lace have super sharp claws.
How much is your son into all these monitors, dude? I mean, your son's what, like 4 now? How old's your son?
He's 4. Yeah, he doesn't. The thing is, the prestige is gone. You know, he sees all this stuff. He doesn't care. You know.
He's used to it.
Yeah, and I think he sees it as like, this takes my dad away from me every day. You know, so I'm gonna pay for that when he gets older. He's gonna resent me, and I'm gonna be a shitty father. But you know, but he loves it when the eggs are hatching, and he loves checking on the eggs. And he recognizes, like, oh, Dad, I looked through the wine fridge and one of them's dimpling. We need to look at the eggs. There's a dimple in it. Like, he recognizes all that little stuff. He remembers everything like a sponge. So he loves it, especially when I candle the eggs and he can he can see the animals moving around in the eggs. He loves all that stuff, you know. But, you know, I've been really lucky that building this facility and people seeing how awesome it is and how, you know, it's just me in here doing a little private projects has really, like, people are coming out to contact me to work on projects with them at very little risk on my end. Like, I had, you know, John Heidecker and Jason Abels, who run 3J's Tortoise Sanctuary in Florida, and they do the Galapagos tortoises. Yeah, and they just hit me up out of the blue a few months ago and wanted me to work with their lace monitors. And I had told them no at the time because I didn't have enough room, and I didn't think it was fair to take those animals and to work with them if I couldn't give them exactly the same conditions and awesome enclosures that I have everybody else in. So it came around a couple months later that, you know, I had freed up some space, moved some animals around, and the Crocs were back breeding again. So I had room to bring more laces in, and they just, no questions asked. I called them and they made a deal with me, and they sent over $20,000 in lizards on good faith. You know, just based on relationships that they have with Steve Angeli, who does Heridium Angeli. I've known him for 20 years since I was a kid, you know, and my brother is really, really close to him. They're really good friends. I think Steve's actually at my brother's place in Big Bear this weekend, just kind of hanging out. They're borrowing his cabin for the weekend. So you know, like, it's really cool, but on the other end, it's a lot of pressure, you know. Like, I wanted them to understand that even with somebody who is experienced, shit happens. The lizards and Mother Nature and circumstance don't give a fuck how good of a keeper you are. They don't. And they don't care that that lace monitor is $10,000. They don't give a shit that your Nile monitor is $50. The conditions are the exact same. It doesn't cost me any more money to breed T-negative albino water monitors as it does to breed normal Sumatran water monitors, aside from initial investment. It is the exact same amount of effort, exact same amount of food, exact same caging, exact same resources on every other facet. So, you know, I like working with the higher end animals because I feel like when there are successes, the successes are merited in the resources that I have to put forth to get those successes. But, you know, on the flip side, it is a lot to take on, especially with other people's animals. If something should happen here and something could happen, you know, an animal gets sick or whatever, like I would feel like a dick, you know?
But dude,
and to me, I don't want to deal with it.
Yep, I've went through it, and one of my early mentors, Mark Bailey, he's just like, breeding loans, he's like, just don't do it. He goes, just don't. He's like, I just don't do it. He goes, it just you know, it ruins friendships. It, you know, because it's like that's why business partnerships don't ever work. You know, I mean, a ship that never sails is a partnership, and that's because you know you're over there.
Good
yeah,
one.
it's true. It's I say it all the time. It's a Dave Ramsey quote, but it's you know, I mean, just look at the statistics of business partnerships. I mean, they're very, very discouraging. And did you get unplugged? And you know, with breeding loans and stuff, it's like it's easy for that person who sent you the animals. It's like, all right, well, I just spend this ton of money and then give it to this guy, and then you know he does it. It works out, and we get rich, and everybody's happy. But then you know you're there working with the animals, and something, you know, so many things go wrong. I mean, I'm sure more things go wrong with trying to breed monitors than they go right at this point in time where we're at with husbandry. So, you know, just you know, I can't even I can't even imagine breeding Croc monitors. It just seems like such a unreachable goal. I mean, so few people have done it, and you know, now hopefully you're gonna just totally change that game, you know, and it's gonna be awesome. But you know, you have to have realistic expectations and the knowledge, and that's something, you know, I got to go back to Adam from Beach Bum's question about just going over this general husbandry stuff. So we know what substrates are bad. You're saying that like topsoil, sand, mulch, kind of a mixture of all the above. What kind of things do they need to look out for in those substrates that could be harmful? So they want to get the most natural source possible. Right.
Yeah, you know, I have a chosen few things that I use for lay boxes, in particular, and all of those things I get from Home Depot, and there's a couple things you need to take into account. A lot of them aren't necessarily things that you need to take into account for the health of the animal as that animal is interacting with the soil, but for the health of the animal of how that soil is going to interact with your caging because of that animal. So, you know, like for instance, I wouldn't put a lay box next to a water source. All it's gonna do is kick all that dirt in the lay box. You know, a lot of those soils and stuff have pH buffers in them. That gets into the water. The animal's ingesting that. It's just never a good thing. Also, if you're running a filter system and you have sandy soil next to a pond, the sand settles at the bottom. It gets sucked into your filter system. You have issues. But mostly you just need to make sure you're working with organic stuff and natural stuff. This idea of bioactive soils, all soils are bioactive, especially when your animal's taking a shit in it. Your shit is biologics. So it doesn't matter if you put rock wool in there, which is not inherently biologic on its own. Same thing with coconut fiber. It is a neutral base, a neutral media. It's pH neutral for the most part when buffered. And it doesn't have a nutrient base really. So plants aren't going to break that down. It's not bioactive. But if I take a shit in it, it becomes bioactive. So, you know, it's not the substrate, it's the shit. Shit is biologics. You know, anybody who has a compost pile or any Native American will tell you, you know, you take shit and manure and you put it in soil, it increases the biologics of the soil, the bioavailability of nutrients, increases your plants, blah, 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 blah. So, you know, that when people are like, oh, are you going to put bioactive soil in there? And then it's not bioactive soil, okay? It's a base for bioactive to live in. So, you know,
so we should push shit in our cages, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it for years, and I haven't had a problem. The only issue is that, like, you know, like when I wipe, I make sure not to throw the toilet paper in the pond system because it doesn't break down.
Yep.
And then, you know, if you have the runs, the lizards, they think that's disrespectful. So you got to make sure, you know, you have a high fiber diet, and then you create a nice swirl just like your guys' logo.
Yes.
So it just looks like perfect. You're like a perfect pile of shit, human shit, just in there. So, but you know, the worst thing you can put in an enclosure for substrate is like potting soil or something with like nutrients in it or added nutrients.
Yeah.
You need all organic. I literally have right here, because I literally just bought stuff for lay boxes for the lace monitors, or as I like to call them, lace boxes. It's Sunshine Smagnum peat moss, and that's like 3 cubic feet or some shit at Home Depot. And then the other part is organic garden soil, all natural, and it's made by Kellogg. And that stuff, if you keep that lay box moist, there's enough biologics in the soil where it starts to kind of compost, and it stays really warm at the bottom. So that's what's kind of cool about that, as opposed to, you know, the enclosures have normal dirt in them. You're not going to get heat from the dirt that is connected to the earth. You know, like the earth is not going to allow you to have that. So your camera's on fire, MJ.
No, it's not. It's just my room.
And but you know, it's one of those things where if you're thinking about it too much, don't do it.
Right.
Just stick to the basics. The lizard doesn't give a shit. You can always change the substrate later. So play the safe route. You can always make changes later. You don't need to go all out in the beginning. You can always make adjustments.
Yeah.
Well, but I want to know what to put in my boxes, like with my tree monitors, where, you know, and I have them set up where the whole bottom of the cage, you know, like I based them off Manfred Reisinger, who's a, you know, tree monitor guy. They named yellow tree monitors after him, and he has these 4-foot enclosures for dwarf monitors on the bottom, and on the right side there's a basking light, and then it's kind of heating the dirt substrate up that's like a foot tall up above, and a lot of times they just dig down into that toward that light to get that exact temp, but then sometimes they go, like San Diego Zoo, you know, we went and talked to Brett Baldwin and seen, you know, he's been doing the
sick ass invite, by the way. Anyways.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Dick.
And
for sure. God.
No, we'll go over there.
Why laughing, Steven?
Yeah, just talking to him and Jeff Lem about breeding the tree monitors, and they have like these real tiny things on the side of the cages with sphagnum.
I think it was a mixture.
Yeah.
It's always this magic mixture, you know, and it's like, fuck, I don't want to have the wrong magic mixture and not get, you know, I don't know. It just.
That's the thing is, especially with the monitor lizards, you know, I don't fucking know what the lizards want. My job is to give them a range and give them every possible thing I can think of, and then they decide. You know, so like when people are like, oh, I'm going to keep my basking area at 120 degrees because I don't want it to be too hot. Like, what do you risk in making it hotter? The lizard's not going to lay under it if it's too hot. It'll just lay off to the side.
Burns?
I don't know of anybody who's burnt a water monitor.
Monitor's getting burned. Like, I can't even. Them having a piece of stuck shed like gives me nightmares. Like, I don't want to burn them. You know,
I don't know. It's like the animals are smart enough to know what's going on. I think the biggest issue I see with people getting burns is not having a large enough enclosure to where they can have a high heat emitting bulb that's far away from a heat source like a stone underneath that's absorbing that heat. So you end up with like 150 watt UV bulb and you're like 12 inches from a brick, right? Well, that animal a lot of times is gauging its heat off of what it feels on its belly. Their backs are way rougher and thicker and more robust than their belly. I think anybody would agree. If you grab an animal's belly and you touch it, it's way more sensitive and soft than their back. So they're gauging their temperatures based on their belly. That's where all their digestive shit is in. So they're laying on that stone, right? And their belly is at 130 degrees, which they're thinking, oh shit, this is rad. Well, because the heat concentration is so concentrated because that light is 12 inches away, if that animal is 6 inches thick, you're increasing that heat concentration by 50%. So now you've got, their back might be 200 fucking degrees. You know, so they're laying on there thinking they're good. By the time that heat gets through their insanely tough skin to where they're thinking, oh shit, I'm getting burned, they probably already separated multiple layers and burned the shit out of their back. Yeah. You know, so it's one of those things where I keep
surface body temp that would temp gun that would get you into the danger zone.
I'm not sure, you know, I've never had an animal get burned from lights. Yeah. You know, I've never had it. The only issue I've ever had was an animal burnt its nose when it literally touched a ceramic bulb. But that's another reason why I don't use like ceramic heat emitters up in the top of the Croc monitors cages for their stuff, because the Croc monitors don't recognize those as heat sources because they're such an avian, or such a, you know, like a, you know, they're such tree dwellers that they're brought up to the light. So I had issues in the smaller enclosures where I was keeping them where they literally wouldn't bask under the ceramic heat emitters. They were laying under these shitty, you know, little ceramic, the shitty little light bulbs that I had, the UVBs, the corkscrew bulbs that don't give off any heat, and they were freezing. And I'm like, dude, there's a basking area right there. But they don't understand because they're not used to heat coming off of something that doesn't produce light. So, you know, it took them a while to get used to that, and I ended up having to switch their basking areas to a light because they just wouldn't recognize it as a heat source. You know, so it's one of those things where I think a lot of it has to do with concentration of heat and how big the animal is. And I tell this to people all the time, you know, if I have a large water monitor like my huge black dragon who's probably 6 to 7 inches thick, maybe 8 inches thick, and I can keep that stone, his basking stone, at about 120, because I know when he lays under it, his back's probably at 150. So, you know, like he's still getting tons of heat, even though my temp gun that's on the stone is not telling me that. I'm at a certain point, I have to start treating the animal and not the tests, right? So I'm testing for this temp and I want that temp. Well, you are getting that temp. You're just testing that wrong. You really need to let the animal bask under there for a while and shoot a light at its back. Plus with a black dragon, like the color black is very, very heat efficient as far as radiant heat and stuff. So like even if you took a car radiator and you just spray painted it black, it would work 20% better. So, you know, so and even like if you take a laser pointer and you color the tip of a match black with a Sharpie, you point that laser pointer at the head of a match. The head of that match now, because of the Sharpie, the black color, it's absorbing all of that light energy and it'll light the match up. But if you just shine it on the white tip, you know, the Sure Strike tip, it doesn't do shit because it's reflective. So, you know, like you have to understand, I guess, you know, you got to understand your animal, you know. But along the lines of the breeding loans, if I could touch back on that for a second.
Yeah.
Like I always make sure that the people that I'm dealing with are in the same boat as me, as in they are successful outside of this and they're just doing this for fun. Yeah. On top of that, I make the same deal with everybody that I've ever done a breeding loan with. I take all the risk and I do all the work. So I never bring in females. I only ever bring in males, aside from the project that we're doing with John and Jason. And it's because I always do a 50-50 split of the clutch, and then depending on if they want the other half of that clutch, the half that is mine, they have the option to buy that half out at wholesale, and then I don't advertise the clutch at all. So like we've done breedings before with people where we've never shown the babies or advertised that we ever hatched eggs. And that was because we had a private project with someone, they brought in animals, and then we just sold everything back out to them. Or it was, sometimes it's a smaller clutch where it's only 8 or 10 animals, and people just take them all and kind of distribute it within their own people that they know, and they just kind of keep that there, and they'll grow them up and do something with them themselves. But what's cool with the Jason and John thing was that they came in, and I had spoke to them months ago about the risk that was involved and kind of why I was not interested in the project. And they came back with a really cool deal where they basically just want me to buy them out of the animals if we're successful breeding. So we have a set price on how much the animals would go for if they were sold. And then if we are successful, and regardless of whether we're successful, I'm sure I'll want to buy the animals anyway, especially after working with them for 6 months or whatever we're going to do before we touch base on the project again. And then after that, then you deal with the eggs and whatever. And I always keep every person who does a project with me, I always keep them open to wholesaling those animals back out. So, like with the black dragons, you're dealing with a $2,800 animal, say $3,000 animal. So, your wholesale prices are going to be, pretty close to half that for normal wholesale. But then if you're dealing with lace monitors, Bell's face lace monitors, your wholesale is not going to be $5,000 if you're selling the animals for 10. Yeah. That would be a little crazy. But your wholesale price might be $6,500 or $7,000 if the other person's going to sell for a good amount of money. You want it to be advantageous for everyone. But even the Croc monitors, we have those listed on our website at $5,500 a piece. So we already have a set price on our CBB animals, just because I don't want to sit on the animals. I don't have the time to sit on animals and wait for them to sell. I just don't have. I don't want to do it. It's no fun.
Yeah. Yeah. No. It's so. Where are you at with the Croc monitor breeding project?
Yeah. Good question.
The newest.
About to ask that.
So as of right now, we cycled all 3 Crocs and we showed all the x-rays. They all cycled really well, but we didn't get them to lay eggs. We had a bunch of temperature drops in here, and I literally just got our 200,000 BTU heater installed. Me and my friend installed it on Saturday, and I had a 500-gallon propane tank put on the property just for that heater. So that will keep this building at 85, 86 degrees year-round, regardless of the outside temps. I mean, I could have a 60-degree temperature differential outside and still be able to catch up with it in the building. That's what you hear running in the background. And that heater works so good.
It's a radiant tube heater, basically.
It's a propane heater, so it's a PDP system. So it's got... it's a huge heater, like a huge warehouse heater that runs on propane. So you have to get a certain style of propane heater to run indoors. This one has a blower motor that blows the air out of the combustion chamber, so you're not burning oxygen and pumping, CO levels up in the building and basically putting your lizards to sleep forever.
We've got a 250 kBTU one in our big rat facility, and it works really good. They get really hot.
Oh yeah, the air that comes off of it's 250 degrees.
Yeah. Does yours
ridiculous.
Get hotter at the front of it?
So I have it blowing straight down the main hallway in the building. Yeah. So, we don't really get hot spots in here because I have circulation fans and everything. And what's cool is the enclosures are their own little boxes. So I'm heating the building, and the boxes that the animals are in, their enclosures have a misting system and everything, so their humidity's high, and they're being heated, residually, basically, from the outside. So it's kind of like little egg boxes inside of a huge incubator that is the building. So it works really well like that.
Yeah, no, they're really efficient, and it's a way that you can heat a large warehouse space. I mean, I think we filled ours last winter only once. The winter before was twice, but it's like $1,000 to fill it, and you can't let them get too low, or they charge you a fee if it's like below 10% propane or something. But yeah, it's a really efficient way to heat a large reptile space. I really like mine. Very worth
Yeah, it was like $1,100 to fill that 500-gallon tank. They only fill it 80% of the way, so it's like 400 gallons or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, I wish there was a smaller version of that for smaller reptile rooms, but they're so powerful.
Yeah, I got, in the meantime, while they were filling that propane tank, I didn't have a way to heat the building other than our 10,000 watt electric heater, and I literally didn't have enough amperage in the building to run more than one of them. So I bought two 30,000 BTU, I forget what they're called, but two 30,000 BTU blue flame wall propane heaters, and I was literally filling up two 20-pound bottles of propane every single day after work, hooking them up to the heaters, starting them, and then when I leave for work at like 3:30 in the morning, I would shut them off and then go to work. So they would run overnight to keep the temperatures in the building around 70, just so the temperatures don't drop crazy. But still, even those, were nowhere near enough to keep the building warm. I mean, the building it's insulated 100%, but, that doesn't really mean, it's not like a house, where you got like R30 insulation or whatever. This is R13 insulation everywhere, and it's just a steel building, so it is what it is.
Yeah, you gotta have those emergency plans though, and I think like we've got generators and stuff we can turn on for the panels, but then I think really like the oh shit scenario is always clean. You gotta have the clean burning propane, but those little they're like little circle ones with a wick, and they can be ran indoors with the windows closed. And a couple of those with adequate propane supply can get you through an emergency situation. But it's something you got to think of, because you never know when power is going to go out, or a storm, or you got to.
Well, we're getting a full-on backup generator next year. So
yeah,
because we get power outages, we get them up here because of the high winds, and we're in a fire area, and what's cool about that propane heater too is I can run that off of a normal generator, because all that's going to run is the blower fan and the igniter. But that 10,000 watt electric heater that I'm trying to run, I can't run that. That thing drops 42 amps and it runs on 240 volts. So, I can't run that. So when we had the power outages and it was really cold at night, I was pretty much fucked. I had hardwired a line into the sub panel in the building to run just basic heat stuff, and even that I was barely able to keep like some of the 250 watt ceramic bulbs on, and the animals were just huddled around them, and it just sucks. Like, it's so stressful.
Yeah, I've had literally no luck with those 10,000 watt electric ones. Like, I've had electricians try to hook them up upright, and it's like they work okay, and then all of a sudden the coils just like they go out. So I don't see them as a good emergency thing. But I think the propane and I saved a crocodile's life down in Florida in the middle of winter when the pump went out. We had to pull it out of the water, a couple of them, and then we took halogen lights, and we pointed, because I could see doing this with monitors if they're about to freeze to death, and pointed halogen lights down on them, and that was another emergency thing I remember going through. But yeah, it's you don't think of this shit till it happens, and when it does, it's,
for real.
Yep, you gotta think quick, man.
That's how you learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, good stuff. But no, back to, just a couple more basic questions. Sorry, MJ, if I'm just trying to get all these guys' questions answered.
I know how you work.
So light bulbs. What kind of light bulbs for somebody that's buying a monitor from you? Are you a fan of having the UVB, UVA stuff, or do you think just having the hot spots, and are you using the cages? Does that matter to you?
Just like all of our stuff, you can find exactly what I recommend on our website on the care sheet. But we have, I use ceramic heat for the basking areas exclusively. That gets ran on a 24-hour cycle, no timer on that. That never shuts off. Generally, if you're in a smaller cage, like for the hatchling, you can put that ceramic bulb about 12 to 14 inches from a stone, and you can use a 150-watt ceramic bulb with the little hoods that we recommend that you can get from Home Depot, and that'll keep the basking area pretty good. And then on the other end, you want a non-heat emitting UV source. So I use the tropical UVB bulbs. I think they're Exoterras. And they're just the coil wound. I don't think they're fluorescent bulbs. And that's going to go over your water source. So you don't want anything heating up your water. But the animals are going to be in the water most of the time. So I recommend those, and you can put a dome on those as well. What's nice about the tropical UVB is it gives off a lot of visible light. So some UVB sources are red, and they give off more of a red spectrum, like the desert UVB and stuff. And it's just kind of hard to deal. What I found happened with those was when I would turn the lights on in the room, it would overwhelm the UVB source in the cage. And that was a negative as far as I was concerned, as far as visible light. So I didn't want there to be this huge transition between visible light and having it like a dark desert enclosure. It just seemed mean to keep an animal in a box that's dark, And then, aside from that, everything's really, really basic. I keep everything here for the hatchlings very, very basic, so that way when they go to your place, they're going to think they're in a fucking mansion, So anything that I'm giving them, you are going to easily be able to meet my basic requirements and then some. So, if I was putting all these babies in one of the enclosures that are behind me, it would be stupid, that nobody else is going to be able to do that. So it wouldn't make any sense.
Does it change? I felt like with my second baby Croc monitor that I think's a male, where I'm having more issues with his attitude. I put him in a bigger cage than I had the first two. Is that a bad thing with the baby to give him, too many choices? And
it depends on your relationship with that animal,
Yeah. If you don't have one yet, if it's just coming in a box.
Yeah, the thing is with the Croc monitors, I feel like they're more comfortable when they can get above you. But you still need to be able to reach them,
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I know that my Croc monitors, when they were in those AP cages, were horrible to deal with. Horrible.
Yeah.
But it was because the only way that they had to come out was towards me, and they're shoved in a tiny box. As soon as I put them in the large enclosures and they knew there was other places to go, they chose to stay where I was at. They chose not to interact with me in a negative way, and they calmed down a ton, with the exception of the psychopath who thinks I'm always feeding him. All of my Croc monitors as of this point are pretty easy to deal with the exception of the big male. And all the other animals are easy to deal with too. I mean, even the big male black dragon is easy to deal with. I just feel like with the larger the enclosure, the easier it is to deal with an adult. The larger the enclosure, the harder it is to work with a young animal that needs to be worked with.
So one other question I had was, What's your favorite species with the three of these here? You know, is there after working with Crocs, do you see the intelligence that they say makes them one of the smartest reptiles? Do you see behavioral differences with the lace and the black dragons? Do you like any one more than the other? You just say
Just dipped out.
Sorry, I had to turn the lights in here are about to shut off at 8 o'clock, so I had to turn the shop lights on. I'm sorry.
Repeat your question there, Forrest. Or did you hear?
No, I heard him.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, you know what? That's what was really cool about working with the Crocs was I literally felt like I was starting over. You know, like I had a good amount of experience with the Salvators, and to be honest, like they're not hard to breed for me anymore. I mean, the last breeding project I had JTK Reptiles. I went up to Long Beach, picked up an adult male sulfur. I had it down here for 24 hours, bred it to Onyx, and drove it back. And she'll probably lay a shit ton of fertile eggs. Like I have their timing down so easy. You know, like it's just breeding them is not a challenge. I mean, honestly, if anybody has like some crazy breeding project they want to do with a black dragon, you know, send me a male that piques my interest. I'll be able to produce, you know. But the thing that was cool about the Crocs was everything felt new. You know, it felt like a new challenge. And it was so intimidating when I got Don Vito, because I had literally handled Moses Nuno, his Croc monitor Bamboo, like once when it was like a year old, and that was my experience with Croc monitors. And so when my first Croc monitor was an adult male 8-foot Croc monitor, and you know, I spent like $6,000 for this thing, and it was target trained, and it was like an insane start to a new journey. You know, if you're gonna get in the pool, like just jump in, let's get wet. You know, so it was just a whole different thing. Like everything was new. The way the animal looked at you was new. You could tell right away that you were dealing with a different level of intelligence and problem solving. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to get away with the same stuff that I could get away with the water monitors, where, you know, the water monitors are super simple. I mean, if you give them a good habitat, they will produce. And the females will cycle, and if they have dirt, they'll lay eggs. You know, it is literally mostly just about water temps and cage temps, basking temps, and that's it. The water monitors will produce. You don't even need to worry about their humidity. Like aside from their lay box, I don't do shit for humidity in the water monitor enclosures. That misting system that I have doesn't include the water monitor enclosures. So, you know, I just felt like with the Crocs, it was going to be a whole new challenge. It was like immediately I realized why people hadn't been successful with the species thus far. And I knew that it was going to take some drastic measures on my part to even feel like I was making progress with the species.
We're rooting for you, man. It's going to be exciting if you start cranking them out.
Oh yeah, it's going to be sick. Let me ask you this, Cory. Longevity-wise, where do you see yourself in the long run? You know what I mean? Like, fucking, let's say your kid's 18, all grown up and shit. Where do you see the facility and all that stuff in the long run?
To be honest, I mean, in the long run, I don't think I'll be breeding monitor lizards anymore. You know, like I don't want to do this stuff forever. I mean, I enjoy it now, and it's fun and it's intriguing. But you know, if this year I was really successful with the lace, and I was successful with the Crocs, what more is there to do? You know, and it's funny because so one of the things that people ask me about and is that Kevin McCurley is always saying, he doesn't have 10 years experience breeding monitor lizards, blah, blah, blah. And I'm always thinking to myself, you're shooting yourself in the foot by telling people that, because if I wanted to, I would tell people that I had a year's experience breeding monitor lizards, and it would make you look like shit. That some kid can come along in a couple years and just be successful breeding monitor lizards. You don't want people to know that. And you think you're burning me by discrediting my journey, when in fact you're discrediting yourself by trying to spread this narrative that you don't need to be doing this for very long to be successful. Doesn't make any sense. I just don't understand some of these guys' arguments. It's so funny.
Wow.
You know, it's
shit.
just weird, but you know, it's one of those things where, you know, I would hope for his sake that I have more experience and I've been doing this longer to have the successes that I've had. And, you know, I don't want to be stroking my own ego, because I have tons of stuff I still need to learn. I'm learning new stuff on a daily basis. Some days I come in here and I work with the monitors and I feel like I don't know shit and I haven't figured anything out for sure. You know, the animals are always throwing me curveballs. I'm constantly learning. I am not a monitor lizard expert by no means. I have had successes with keeping monitors, and it is almost entirely because I am not a minimalist. I am a maximist to its fullest, and I take everything, I dial everything up to 1,000. I give the animals more than I can possibly fathom that they need, so that way I eliminate that variable from an equation that I think is already too complicated for people to understand. And, you know, I don't think that that's a bad way to do things. There is very little risk in taking care of the animals the way that I do. You know, even down to feeding. Like, I literally feed almost everybody week-old chicks, okay? And the reason I do that is because week-old chicks generally don't have food in their stomach. They were just born. And a week-old chick is literally an encompassment of everything that has been inside of an egg most recently, and that's what I want my food to create in a lizard's body, is eggs. So I'm not introducing any foreign material from having any 3-week-old chicks or month-old chicks that have been feeding on food and they get, you know, humanely killed with, you know, dry ice or however the hell they do it. And that animal has feed in its belly that you know is GMO. It's been genetically modified to you know, hey. You know, but yeah, and no, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody, I eat chicken, you know, and it's all GMO stuff, but it's just another variable that I think people overlook. You know, that your food that you're giving your animal needs to align itself with your goals for that animal's production. If I was trying to cut weight for a fight, I sure as fuck wouldn't be eating Carl's Jr. every day. I'm not going to be able to cut weight and make weight for my tournament, right? You know, there's a method to this madness, and there's a lot more people need to think about. I think when they're trying to be successful in a certain way, people go out of their way to have a specific goal and don't go out of their way to have a specific plan. And it is so stupid, you know? And for me, I always keep my cell phone number available, and I'm always willing to help people breed these things. I don't give a shit. You know, if somebody wants to put me out of business, good luck. Like, I don't care. Like, I'd be happy to help you. I will drive to your house and help you build enclosures. I will be there every step along the way. Every amount of information or every issue that I've ever had, I'm not using that, I'm not holding that back as ammunition against people ever. I want them to know that I've had this issue before and exactly how to remedy it, so I can take some of that stress off their hobby and make it just that much more fun for them. I wouldn't wish any of the mistakes that I've made on anybody in the industry.
So what you're telling me is if I buy a black dragon from you, you're going to come down to my house You're gonna help me build an enclosure.
You know
Sponsor
I
the
would.
wood. Sponsor the wood. I'm just
I got PVC sheets here. I will give you PVC sheets
Oh, this shit's
if
recorded.
you need them.
I love it. Perfect.
Dude, have at it. You know, I offered them to you when you were here last time. I got like a pallet of like 20 sheets up there still. You're welcome to them, you know. If I knew anybody, you know, aside from you, there's not really anybody else local that I talk to or that comes by or who's reliable, you know. I don't deal with anyone local. The closest person I deal with is Moses, and he's up in Chino, you know, and then Vincent Fricano, he's up in Bakersfield. And that's it. Those are like my closest go-to guys for dealing with the reptile stuff. And even then, they're not, you know, they have families. They're not available to physically help, but I don't care about that part. I like the physical stuff. I like building stuff, and I have two really close friends, Donald Schaffler and Mark Leaning, and they will come out and help me build anything, and none of them have ever touched any of my lizards. They fucking hate them. But they will come out and help me build whatever I want. They were the ones who were here putting in all that work. You know, Mark was, you know, he wasn't off work. Donald wasn't off work. Donald was coming over before work. He was working second shift, coming over before work, helping me. And then Mark would get off work, having woken up at 4 a.m, gone to work. He would come off after work. And so he would pick up, and I would work 16, 17, 18 hours days, you know, and that's just how I did it. I always just run everything. I run myself into the ground. I've always been that way, you know. Once I get my mind set on something, I don't stop. Like, it's obsessive for me.
Yep. I think we could all relate to that. Everybody in this podcast right here, as far as, you know, where the obsession takes over. So that's kind of where you're at, man. And I feel like these cards were laid out for you for a reason, and you know, you just happen to fucking build a relationship that you built based off the passion you have, and it was just meant to be, bro. Like, I think it's fucking awesome, and hopefully, I don't know, hopefully you do keep this going for a while. That's
yeah,
sure.
I'd like to keep it going, you know, as long as I can. It's just, you know, at a certain point, it's not, you know, it's not. I'm here to have fun. So as soon as the fun's gone, that's it. You know, I don't have any reason to do it anymore. And it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to sell off my animals, but I can guarantee you my social media is probably going to get taken down because that shit sucks. It's a pain in the ass. You know, I hardly ever keep up with it. I mean, dude, I have like, you know, we have like over 100,000 followers, and I don't have that much engagement on there because I never post stuff, you know. I'll get a thumb up my ass and post like 3 pictures in a day, and then I don't post for a week. You know, or I'm like, oh, cool, I got x-rays, let me post them real quick, you know. So the algorithms, the way the algorithms are set up, you're not hitting your target audience's feed unless you're posting on a regular basis. So, you know, it's just one of those things where I don't, you know, I like the day-to-day stuff with the animals where I'm by myself, I'm feeding animals, I'm cleaning cages, I enjoy them. I don't really enjoy the other stuff. Yeah. You know, and you know, I've been approached by people who wanted me to, you know, have like a booth at the reptile shows, and it's always like, you know, I would love to have a booth, but it would only be to bring some of my animals and just like show them off.
People, yeah.
I'm not gonna go there and sell lizards. Nobody's impulse buying a Bell's Phase lace monitor, you know. So it would just be to go down there, maybe design a special booth that's got, you know, plexiglass around a table or something where I can just let onyx roam free, or maybe a baby gate area with onyx in it, and maybe one of the Croc monitors or something, one of the ones that's cool, and, you know, just to kind of have them there. I mean, literally the last reptile show we had in San Diego, there was one cool animal there, and it was the woman who brought the female Croc monitor she had there, and she had literally just picked it up from my house the day before.
Oh, Janet Lee. The
Yeah,
Asian
so
girl.
she's in Arizona. She's a vet.
Dude, she's
So
fucking
she
some sick ass shit.
Yeah, she's been increasing her collection lately, but she picked up that female from me, and she took it to the show, was carrying around like a baby. So funny.
Yeah, I saw that. Actually, I was there. That's when me and Forrest ran into you there too. I think that last San Diego show.
Yeah.
Which should get better. We reached the 2-hour mark, but I mean, how are you on time? I don't want to take up too much more of your time, Cory. I mean, I just want to let you know we hit the 2-hour
I'm good.
mark.
It's Friday night. There's no football on or nothing, so I'm good. I'd be happy to answer any more questions you got.
You're not going to go downtown tonight? No, you don't have no fucking no tables reserved or anything like that?
No, I don't drink or do drugs, so
there you go.
There's nothing for me down there, you know. If anything, if I go out at night, it's usually to go like play pool somewhere or like, you know, go to I volunteer at a church on Fridays usually. So, you know, I do that stuff.
What's your go-to taco shop here in San Diego?
Dude, you know, I like Los Panchos over there in El Cajon.
Is it cash only?
No.
No. There's
what place is cash only?
Victoria. Those are the best places to go to. The ones that don't have the card. I think Victoria's right there off Lincoln is cash only. But no, Los Panchos is good. Los Panchos is hella good. They have good rolled tacos. I judge
Mexican food places by their bean and cheese burritos and by their hot sauce. So I'm a real basic man. Now I'll eat the same thing every single day until I'm tired of it. I don't care, you know. Yeah, I had it's been fun, you know, like the facility getting up and dealing with all the new stuff and bringing in new animals and the new challenges has been fun. And we wrapped up all of our DNA testing at Therion, so we're done. We have all of our results now. So Tony's writing that report on all that stuff. So all the hybrids got tested, all the parthenogenic animals got tested. And what's cool about that too, to play back to Forrest's point about the herpetology, is I set all that stuff up to where they cannot overcharge you to run if you want to send in, you know, samples yourself to Therion. And you know how many people have hit up Therion to send in samples, including Mr. Nerd over there who tried to blow me up about how he doesn't know where I'm getting DNA testing from because he hasn't been able to find a place in 20 years, blah, 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 on the forum, when literally I send all my stuff across the United States to New York, which is right by him, just to get my DNA testing done, who is the #1 DNA testing place for animal DNA in the world. Google search would have net you that information. But we set it up to where you can get all of that. It's all really cheap, and you don't have to send in blood samples. You can literally send in a piece of shed skin. So we did DNA runs with our blood samples and with shed skin, and then we tested the level of error that was introducing to the testing, and it was next to nothing. So they just use a different kit for getting the DNA from the flesh, but you don't have to refrigerate. You don't have to do shit to test your DNA at Therion. You literally take a piece of skin off the back of the lizard, throw it in an envelope, send him money and skin, and he'll test it. And he can test the DNA relatedness against any of your other animals. So a lot of the breeders that do the genetic relatedness testing with them, and a lot of the zoos that use their facility, they use like the indigo snakes is a big one. They test all their animals to find the animals that are least related, and then they breed those animals together, because the less related the animals are, the more robust and larger the offspring get. And this is another concrete example of why localities of water monitors do not get very large, because a locality of a water monitor, or any animal for that instance, is literally a visual representation of inbreeding in an area. So those animals had a certain visual trait. They tend to survive a little bit longer than the other animals around, whether that's camouflage or what have you. Those animals survived long enough to breed back into the population. Those traits ended up being heterozygous, homozygous, you know, whatever, codominant traits, whatever. And so those animals just breed back into each other over and over and over, and the animals stay small because there is a lacking of genetic diversity in that area. And so those animals don't get as big. So when people are like, oh, I want the black dragon that's from that area that Quetzal gets his from in Thailand, Like, yeah, that's cool and all that you want that, but you're on one end, you're saying you want the biggest black dragon you can have. Then on the other end, you want a black dragon from an area where all the animals are black dragons, or most of the animals in that area are black dragons. Well, you're going to end up with an animal that doesn't have the size potential genetically anymore because they just don't have a level of genetic diversity that would merit a larger animal. You know, Mother Nature has put a lot of checks and balances in place to ensure genetic diversity and ensure species longevity. And a lot of that has to do with how large an animal gets. Look at parthenogenic animals for one. They get big and they get big fast. And those are parthenogenic animals. And there's a huge misconception that hybrid animals and parthenogenic animals are sterile. That is not true. Even the ligers and whatever, all the other hybrid animals, they breed those things. So do the Google. Use the Google. Use the Googling. So, you know, like those animals, you have to realize Mother Nature put parthenogenesis in place because there was a time where animals were under breeding stress in an area where they did not have enough males to produce with the females to maintain a population or to grow a population. So they put in this system where the female can literally create a viable animal herself, and that animal can grow super fast so it can go Netflix and chill with all of its mom's friends as quick as it can and make more babies. Like, that's what it's for. So that's why those animals get larger. So when you see animals that are large, that is almost always a representation that that animal has good genes. Nobody ever says like Shaquille O'Neal has bad genes. That dude's 7 feet tall. Like, I wish I had his genes. You know, nobody looks at a short dude and they're like, oh, fuck, I wish I had his genes. Like, no, you don't do that. Nobody wants that guy's genes.
Yeah.
You know, his short, 32 long genes.
Napoleon syndrome.
You know, it's a proven fact that diarrhea runs in your genes. Everybody knows that.
That's so funny. Oh, shit. Oh, man. You got anything else from Forrest before we wrap shit up? Forrest, you there? I don't hear a fucking word this guy's saying.
Yeah, Forrest, we lost your audio.
Fucking, he's drunk. He doesn't even know what the fuck's going on.
He probably muted us because he was talking shit.
Yeah.
And then now he's like, oh, fuck, I forgot to take you off mute. How do I do it? He's scrambling around.
While he's getting that shit fucking fixed, Cory, you know, your website still, it's still going to be up for, you know, for the time being, because, you know, you kind of set out on your platform, your social media platform, that, you know, the eggs that you will be hatching in the future are going to be wholesaled out. So what's the deal?
Yeah.
What's the deal with people with that?
Well, so the animals are still going to be Toothless Reptiles bred animals. They're still going to be microchipped here. That was one of the deals I had with Josh, was that I was going to microchip the animals here, then send them over, and then he would be able to sell those out as Toothless Reptiles animals. It was more of like a, you know, I mean, you don't want people selling animals saying they're yours if you don't have a level of traceability, which is why I microchip the animals. So I can literally say whether I bred that animal or not. But when people contact me who want black dragons, I just send them to Josh, you know, and they can get them from Josh. And whatever price point Josh puts his animals at is his business. I don't care, right. You know, it's none of my business, you know, they're his animals. That's how business is supposed to be, you know. So, you know, and to everybody's point, I don't know what those price points are going to be. And if you want an animal directly from me for $2,800 chipped and shipped, just like we always do, you need to reserve those animals before they hatch. Because once those animals start hatching, that's it. They're all going to, you know, Josh. And there is quite a few animals that are already reserved out of that clutch. But then the next clutch is all going to Josh. I'm not going to pre-sell those animals. This is literally the last time I'm hoping that I will ever have black dragons for public sale. That is the goal, because, you know, just business wise, yeah, and business wise, the thing is, just like what the reference Forrest was making to the calculator lying, at least I'm pretty good with the black dragons where I know they're going to hatch. I mean, they've been incubating for like 5 months now. Like, those are fertile eggs. They're going to hatch. But on the calculator, I still have to sell all those animals for them to make me money, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm wholesaling those animals back out, and I have somebody like Josh who's done very well in the reptile trade, and can just wholesale those animals, then that's money in the bank for me. I can bank on that money coming in. So even though it might be a smaller amount, that is two birds in the bush, 2 birds in hand instead of 1 in the bush, so it's a win-win for me. I don't have to deal with people. I don't have to ship animals. I don't have to deal with the stress of it. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to be as available as I always am to people who need help or assistance. It just means that, I can take a step back from the actual person-to-person sale of the animals, which is a plus on my end.
Right. One of my wrap-up questions for you is, I noticed that you're pairing up those bell lace monitors. What's behind all that? What if you got something going on with that? What are you going to do with those?
So chances are those would be wholesaled out too. And hopefully those will be wholesaled out to John and Jason. That's the goal with that anyway. I don't think those animals are going to be hard to move. Same thing with the Croc monitors. There's a reason why I never even contacted anybody about wholesaling out the Croc monitor babies, just because I think they're going to sell so fast. But it's one of those things where, as somebody who's trying to, this is a hobby, and people see all the stuff and the sales and the animals for sale, and they interpret that as a business. And Toothless Reptiles is a legitimate business. It is a licensed business. I have sales permits and a business license. Right. But I take no pleasure in the business side of this hobby, aside from having the money and being able to further fund the projects that I already have going. That's the extent of the pleasure. It has nothing to do with the process of getting the money, and selling the animals. So chances are those would get wholesaled back to Jason and John as well. I think that would be the right thing to do, to let them sell those animals. I mean, the prestige for me comes from everybody knowing I have produced them, right? The prestige doesn't come from selling the animals. But as far as the lace, we're sending a Bell's Face male out to Ty Park. Ty Park's sending us a Bell's Face female, I believe January 2nd or so. And then Chris Murray is sending us one of his normal lace. And I'm picking that up from Simhatch, John Adrana and Alex over there at the show, at the reptile show in Anaheim. And I don't know if you're going to that, MJ, but let me know.
We're all trying to go.
I'll be there Saturday for sure. I don't know about Sunday because I kind of blow my load usually the fucking just the day one. I can't.
Yeah, I heard that about you. You blow your load really quick.
Yeah,
I get too excited. But yeah, I'm for sure. I'm for sure gonna go Saturday. What day are you going?
We're gonna be up there on the 4th. So I think me and Moses are gonna be up there, and then and then I got to pick up that animal and talk to Steve. I want to see Steve. I haven't seen him in a while. I haven't seen him since the last Anaheim show, I think.
Big shout out to Steve Angeli, John Heidecker, and Jason Abel. These are all guys doing awesome stuff. So
yeah, they've been doing great stuff, and on top of that, they're great guys. Like, you don't hear anybody that has a valid opinion ever talking shit about those human beings. It doesn't happen, and then you kind of have to take a grain of salt, and it's definitely a reflection of people's character when they talk shit about other people just because they're more successful, or have been in a lesser amount of time. I always take that stuff with a grain of salt. It just sucks. The reptile trade is ridden with horrible human beings like Akram and some other people, and it's just it sucks because people get into the trade with good intentions, and they get on these forums and they ask basic questions and they get fucking blown up and discouraged from even continuing a journey in the trade.
Yeah.
And it is an absolute travesty that this shit happens all the time.
Every day.
And then you have people like, Akbar, who are taking advantage of these folks, where they literally sit there, they watch them ask these basic questions, and they lend a helping hand knowing that they have their own benevolent agenda where they're going to fuck this person over when they sell them a sick animal in the next month and a half and make them think that they can take care of it long term. It's just shitty. The stuff that I see happen is just, it sucks, and it subtracts from the trade. It really does. It subtracts from the trade, and yeah, I don't know. I just don't see enough encouragement for people breaking out of the box. I just don't see it. Especially from the people who have been in the trade so long, and you look at where they've come from, it hasn't really changed all that much. I haven't seen a lot of people advance in the trade that have been doing it that long in a husbandry sense. I've seen people gain success financially and with the scope of work that they're doing, as far as the size of their collection and maybe the bigger building that they have and the larger pet store and the larger following. But when, as a reptile keeper, I look at the husbandry that they're putting forth and the way they take care of the animals, and I'm like, that dude's been taking care of lizards in fucking tiny boxes since day one. What has he done since then? What has he done to advance the husbandry, even on his end? And it just, I think it just sets a bad precedent for the possibilities in husbandry that you can have. I just think it's not really good for the hobby. But on the other side of that coin, we need those people.
Yeah, and I think it's so easy to get to make, I don't know, so many people get discouraged by those bad ones, but really if you look, and it's like, here's some great guys here, Cory, you're one of them, Steven's okay, MJ, all people that love reptiles and all. What? No, Steven's okay.
All right. Well, because you
MJ,
said
you're cool.
Steven okay, and then you said my name, so it's kind of like almost like I'm just okay too. So I just want to.
No, you're all right. You're a good dude. But no, I mean, honestly, like the most incredible people I've ever met in my life have all been reptile people, and they've all been serious reptile people. I mean, it's taken me. I've been able to do a lot of things in my life and go to other countries and meet other. I mean. It just, like, you're part of this international community, and there are so many people in that international community that do love this stuff, and they want to do the best for the animals, and they have good intentions. But if we focus and we show the world, and so much of stuff we put on social media, we're sitting there talking about like these shitheads or these people, and even the shitheads, man, you can always try to change their mind. If there's something you disagree with them on, you got to somehow spin it in a way that benefits them, I guess. If they're a flipper, try to make them understand that flipping healthier, better animals could benefit them in the long run. Unfortunately, they have that lack of foresight to say, hey, less now, more later. That's a tough thing. But but don't just, we can't just focus on the business side. We got to focus on people like you, Cory, that you're doing it no matter what. Because you love it, and the greatest times that all of us are having are getting to work with new species and getting to meet new people, come to your facility, come to MJ's place, the Snake Trap, and see just his varied collection that he's built and how much fun he's having, and Steven with the scrub pythons and all this stuff. Like, we all just feed off that energy, and yeah, Silver Spoon, Steven getting it. Yeah, I get it. But
Steven's bored right now because we're not talking about scrubs or leopard geckos.
Yeah, he's just like, what are you gonna give me?
What am I getting?
What's in it for me?
What am I getting for being on this podcast?
Yeah. He'll probably ask me that later.
He will. He said fucking 5 words this whole time. He wants something.
Yeah. Do I get a 4-hour minimum even if we end early?
Yeah.
What's my overtime?
I've had a lot of kids work for me, and when I was their age, I was fucking volunteering, and Glades Herp and shit, doing crazy shit, and fuck, man, if you could get like, something to drink or some food or anything, you were really lucking out. And it's like, they're like, hey, so if you breed these this year, can I get like a Croc monitor or a baby Miss Willie? And it's like, holy fuck, man, like, like, yeah,
yeah, that's a little much.
Like, yeah, what else do I owe you,
yeah,
but that's just,
well, people put, they put a high price on the stuff that they have, but at the same point, a lot of resources that they have to work with are very basic, right? So you have people who, like if I brought somebody in here to clean cages, honestly, I wouldn't want them to do it because I have a particular way that I like to do stuff, and I like to do that shit.
The same way,
so, I don't want the help. I have people who offer me help. MJ's offered me help, and I never take him up on it. It has nothing to do with the fact that I don't want to be around him because he's too handsome. It has everything to do with I just want to do everything myself.
It's because I'm probably a liability. I'm gonna get my fucking hand chopped off, probably.
Yeah, seriously. That's what's cool about when I bring in my boy Donald. We've built so much stuff over the years. Half pipes and all kinds of projects.
Yeah.
We used to remodel homes and stuff on the side. He's a certified plumber for UCSD, so he knows how to use tools. So I just tell him what we're building and he knows, and we put the fucker together, so, and we had, I literally almost killed him once with a tractor, and he still loves me for some reason. We went to the gym this morning after work, so he still hangs out with me. So, like I literally almost killed him with a tractor when I was in here, when we were digging out for the skirts that are under the wall so the animals can't dig between enclosures. It was fucking horrible. I felt like such an asshole. I was so apologetic.
That's so wild.
It was bad.
I got a bobcat and a couple forklift and some fun stuff. But the bobcat, I've done some silly stuff. Like the bobcat, I had no idea what I was doing, and I've almost flipped it back.
Steven's had a couple stories, I think, a year ago of you doing some crazy shit on the bobcat or something.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, it got sketchy.
Yeah, like super sketchy.
Well, those things are weird. Fun, like when they start to bounce and you have the controls, like you're bouncing with the controls, so it's like compounding the bounce, and then it just goes fucking nuts, and then you have to let go of the controls and like wait for it to stop bouncing and then start over. Right. It's nuts, man. Yeah. And I had rented an excavator, a small excavator with just a 12-inch bucket to do the excavation. Well, I was doing all those GoPro time lapses in the building because I was trying to do this whole series on how I'm making this fucking building, right? And I don't film a bunch of crap or whatever. I used to do videography, but I don't do it anymore. So I just threw the GoPro up. Well, we had gotten to a point where I needed to move the GoPro because I didn't want to hit it with the tractor, with the excavator. So I jumped out of the front of the excavator because the arm was all the way up. And when you jump out of the front, you don't lift the safety that's on the side to get out of the side. You're supposed to go out of the side, so you lift the safety and all the controls shut down. Well, I jumped out of the front and grabbed the camera, moved it, jumped back in the front of the excavator, and my big ass, I'm 215, 6'2", and like I bumped the fucking joystick and the whole thing swung full speed, and literally Donald was anchoring in the wall next to me, which was 6 feet over. He's got concrete anchors and he's anchoring the thing in. We completely shatter the wall and it missed his face by a foot. We have, if you play the time lapse that we have of doing the building, you can see in the time lapse, if you play it really slow, you can see the fucking thing go past and shatters the entire wall. And I got off the joystick just in time before it tore a hole in the side of the building. It was fucking so bad.
Joke. It's better than fucking taking somebody's head off.
Dude, yeah. And then my son had one of those big 18-foot ladders fall and damn near fucking landed on top of him. It was bad. Yeah.
It's dangerous, man. That's one thing I love about reptiles. I mean, you already have this background in all these different construction areas and engineering, but I love that this whole journey has been like, it's made me like have to learn, plumbing, electrical, all this crazy shit. Even if I mean, learn it to the point where I can just get the job done wrong, and then pay somebody else to come in and fix it. But it's
at least you tried.
I like Yeah, I like buying tools and I like my Milwaukee stuff. I got a saw stop. I'm pretty proud of that. So,
dude, my rigid tool set. I've had that rigid tool set, 18-volt tool set for probably 8 years. Never had a problem with it. When I built the building, I burned up a drill and I burned up a reciprocating saw. They literally both stopped working because I was using them nonstop all fucking day. And they just flat out quit working and started smoking and shit. So I had to buy new tools. Like my hand, the inside of both of my hands were bruised from the impact guns that running the screws down. Because we were doing, on the walls, you're screwing all the way around the panels on all of them, with the screw guns all the time, putting in those big ass 3-inch long wood screws. My hands were all bruised and fucked up for probably a few weeks after we were done. It was pretty bad, but, it was fun.
What about
to
concrete?
see the
Were you
finished
drilling?
product.
Did you drill into concrete a lot? I mean, we're doing some of that right now, and just burning through bits and drivers, and oh man, like anchoring to concrete. It's the worst.
Yeah, we used an industrial hammer drill, so we didn't use a normal handheld hammer drill. We used I forget what it's called, but Donald had one.
Was it plug-in?
He used them for work. Yeah, so it was a plug-in one, and then we used just your normal 1/2-inch masonry bit, and then I used the red head bolts, so they just hammer in there. And then you bolt them down. But yeah, we only have a couple of them in the floors because, the walls aren't going anywhere. We threw 1 anchor or 2 anchors in the back and 1 in the front. Once everything's sheeted and locked together, none of that shit is going to rack or move, So it was really just to set the walls in so they wouldn't fall over when we were continuing to build. The biggest pain in the ass was getting the second wall on top of the first wall. We had a huge boom forklift that they used to put the building up, and they had forgotten to take back. So they left it on my property. So I had the keys to it, and I just used that. And we ended up lifting the walls up 8 feet on a platform and then sliding them onto the top of the other walls, anchoring them down and kind of throwing a support on the side to keep them from falling over. But yeah, it was a lot of work, It's weird when I see people that are completely unwilling to build enclosures, like it never even crossed their mind. Right. And then they talk about, how much it costs to buy an enclosure. Yeah. And I'm like, just fucking build one.
Especially, for monitors and shit.
I can't build an enclosure. Like, yes, you can build an enclosure. It's a box. It's literally a box.
I still want your help.
There's nothing special about it.
Yeah, I still want your help too, dude.
I still want your fucking help, Cory. Nice try. I know
like you got the.
You're trying to make
you're like a fucking engineer.
Yeah, you're trying to make me look like a fucking
retard. You look at all these expensive cages, like these vision cages. I have a rack of them behind me. They're a box. They're a box with sliding glass doors on it. The lizard doesn't give a shit. Yeah, but the lizards don't give a shit about the box. They care about what you put in the box. Like, it's like a present, bro. My wife doesn't give a fuck about the box. She wants what's inside the fucking box. That's what's going to get me laid and going to keep me married. She doesn't give a shit that I wrap the damn thing.
Keeping it hard.
I don't know. It's got to be that Tiffany's box, though, man. It's like,
Jesus.
Yeah. Well, I broke up with Tiffany. Her name's Becky now.
Okay. Got you.
Yeah, don't tell her.
Man. Okay. Oh man.
Nah, she's not a jewelry lady. She likes she literally sent me a link for what she wanted for Christmas, and it was like baking pans and shit. And I'm like, is this really what you want? Like, I know. You make me feel like I'm an asshole. Like I don't let you wear shoes in the kitchen and shit.
Like you're,
you know,
like
like God damn.
and some shit.
I know. Like damn, man. Like I pay all the bills. Like,
what about you, MJ? What do you got going on for Christmas for the girl? You got some good ideas?
She wants a goddamn Apple Watch, and I think it's a waste of money. But I mean, that's what she wants. I feel like she's gonna either wear it for a week and then break it, or I mean, I don't know. But I mean, that's what she wants.
I got my wife one for her birthday a few months back. She still has it. She likes it.
Yeah.
She likes that you can like. Yeah, you can like use it as like you can like see your camera on it on your phone. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean.
So.
Yeah, I bought the guy next to me. He bought the most expensive one, so I like. And then the Apple guy was being a dick to me, so I ended up buying the most expensive one for her, and I'm just like, man, what a stupid purchase. Like, you know, it's like you know, it's just depreciating.
It's a fucking expensive watch. You can almost pretty much get a Movado at the same price. It's like, I don't fucking know. But then, you know, I just don't really I don't like the whole Dick Tracy look. You know what I mean? I just don't understand that. I'd much rather look at my phone than a little fucking square.
Yeah, it's weird.
Technology, dude. What the fuck? You know, it's whatever sells.
Well, at my work, we're not allowed to have like recording devices or anything in there. So, like, we're not supposed to have our phone. Technically, we're not supposed to have smartwatches either, but that's one thing where you can kind of get away with having a smartwatch. So if something does happen on your phone and your phone is in the lockbox or whatever, you can still see it on your watch to know, like, oh shit, I need to leave like the room and take this, you know, or whatever. So that's why I like it, you know. Plus, I just had heart surgery 2 months ago, so it keeps track of my fucking heart rate in case I'm going insane. So it's nice.
Speaking
I like to see MJ's heart rate, man. That shit's got to get heated, you know.
I got no. Actually, my heart rate's on point right now. I've been getting my heart rate checked out on the weekly, Forrest, for your information. My heart rate's fucking normal.
Checking it doesn't make it any better, MJ. Okay, I can check my heart rate and I might be dead.
Something. It's like I shoot 1 over something 130. It's fucking fine, dude. Don't.
They're gonna be like, did you attach this to a fucking squirrel? What the fuck is going on?
I mean, look how it's just MJ's always mad, you know. It's like
I don't know. Mad. It's my energy, bro. I got the delivery. That's all that is. It's like a TV that has the volume broken. It's just fucking always loud. That's all it is.
No, I mean, MJ keeps me on point. You know, I feel like.
Oh my god! Honestly, I'm really nice to you, Forrest. I should be fucking harder on you on the, you know. Sometimes you become like fucking a president when it comes to reaching you. Sometimes, but we'll talk about that later.
MJ's like the hamster that's in the wheel, you know, going nuts, and then the other hamster's trying to get in there, but the first hamster doesn't fucking let up, so the other hamster's just fucking holding on for dear life about to die, like he's in a fucking wind tunnel and shit. And the first hamster doesn't give a shit about anything. He's just in the zone.
That's why I love Forrest. Yep. Forrest is along for the ride, and he's, you know, he does he does put up with my high strongness, and you know, Forrest knows how to level me out, though. That's our relationship, so we're good.
Well, I've never been hard up for energy, so I've always been kind of full of energy, but you know, that's a whole nother thing.
I feel like at some point this shit's this energy that I have. I mean, I hope it doesn't die out, but I feel like I've had it for so long that it's like a fucking, you know, it's like a jet fuel that's just fucking a jet that just runs out of fuel. But hopefully, I mean, I guess that's why they have testosterone fucking shots and stuff for that stuff. But I mean, I don't have to worry about that.
Dude, people have been telling me that for forever. Oh, wait till you turn 30. Oh, wait till you turn 35. Oh, shut the fuck up. Like, you're just fat and lazy. Leave me the fuck alone.
That's me.
Like, I don't have your fucking disease.
You know,
That's
like,
me.
I'm hyper as fuck. And I still feel like a 12-year-old in my mind. Like, I still want to, like, when I see kids, like, skating and shit, like, I want to go play. Like, I want to go skateboard. You know, my kid jumps on his scooter, and he's, like, scootering around. I'm like, fuck, you know, so I jump on his scooter, and the thing's arched down, hitting the asphalt, like, it's about to break. Like, dude, I got to get my big ass off this thing. Now, I've had 3 knee surgeries, my neck, my back. Like, I've had knees rebuilt. You know, like, fuck, man, like, and my, you know, I just had heart surgery. I have used some shit up, you know, through athletics, and You know, when I go out, I'm gonna be used up when I go out. You know, that's how I want to go out. I'm gonna burn that candle all the way down. I don't give a shit.
Singe that shit to the floor.
Yeah,
that's
seriously.
How I'm gonna fucking roll up to the wheels pop, bro. This is the way to go. That's how I was brought in, and that's how I'm gonna go out.
Yeah, I grew up with that ADHD bullshit and Tourette's.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I get my facial tics and stuff I have, but you know,
my second grade teacher told my mom I needed to be on Ritalin, and my fucking mom pretty much transferred me to another school, and thankfully they didn't put me on Ritalin. I'm glad I wasn't one of those kids who were fucking chomping on pills. Luckily, the other pills
I was on it
later on in life.
I was on it for a little while. I took myself off. That literally, when they put me on ADHD medication, that's when I quit going to any psychotherapy.
Yeah.
I quit. I was like, you guys obviously don't give a fuck about me. These pills fucking ruined my day. Like, I would go from like one end of work to the other end of work, you know, because they didn't put me on medication until I was older, after I was a kid and I had issues. Yeah. And like, I would fucking get to the other side of work and I would literally forget what the hell I went all the way over there for. Like, it was messing with my cognitive abilities. It was fucking horrible.
Fuck that. Well,
Forrest is like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, you're fucking.
Yeah.
Fucking.
Oh, what are you guys talking about?
Drunk.
Shit.
You're drunk
But
over there.
I don't even drink caffeine, and I'm this hyped up. I don't drink caffeine or nothing.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome, man. That's
yeah. I smoke crack, though. There's no calories in it.
Well, San Diego got good
that's
crack.
True.
There's no caffeine in crack cocaine. I mean, you look at the nutritional facts, like, there's no caffeine in it.
Yeah.
So we're good.
They'll cut caffeine with it, believe it or not. I've heard.
They'll cut worse than caffeine.
Yeah, lactate powder, all kinds of stuff.
Fentanyl,
not that I know about any of that
killing
shit.
people. That they've been cutting it with fentanyl, and that's what's actually been killing people out here in San Diego.
Yeah. Well, they've been cutting heroin with fentanyl. Yeah.
But this is advice. We're not talking about fucking, you know, that type of shit here right now, because that's fucking pretty miserable.
Hey, you got to go on Joe Rogan and you want to talk about fentanyl patches.
Yeah.
You got a wrap up question for us before we let fucking Mr. Cory go?
Oh man, no, I mean, it's been our longest podcast yet, so I think we're doing pretty good. You know, hope to have him back, and look forward to you guys in Anaheim. Let's all hang out and
definitely,
you know, catch up. But yeah, it's been a blast, Cory. Really appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, dude, big time, Cory.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I'm always happy to have a conversation with people who, you know, are obviously hobbyists and love the animals just as much as I do. And I'll definitely have all of our Croc monitor stuff posted. I've been posting that stuff as it comes in. The lace monitor stuff, I've been posting all that stuff. I have a truckload of clay dirt getting dropped off at my house in a couple weeks so I can build fake termite mounds for the lace monitors to possibly lay their eggs in, which is going to be fucking sick.
That's awesome.
You know, because that's how I roll. That's how I fucking roll, Forrest. I'm building termite mounds. You go on Google, you look up images of termite mounds in Australia. They're fucking rad. It looks like goddamn Easter Island up in that motherfucker. And then you learn, okay, what are termite mounds made out of? They're made out of clay and termite shit. So I take out the termite shit, and I'm left with clay. So I just get clay, and I build fucking termite mounds in the enclosures, and then now they can lay eggs in termite mounds. And I'm, you know, I don't want to make lay boxes and only have that in there, because the Croc monitors, I have all kinds of lay boxes in there, everything they can possibly think of. So in the lace monitor enclosures, I'm gonna build fucking termite mounds. And then I'm going to see if they like that better, man. You know, try to take out as many variables as I can and give this a real shot over the next 6 months.
Fuck yeah.
So, and I'll keep
Cory,
all that stuff
you
posted.
just got to come out here, dude.
Awesome.
Yeah, I need your help, Cory. So you got to get out here and make my stuff not all shitty. So, because I got, yeah.
Go there and light the fucking fire under Forrest's ass.
Well, I thought that was this guy. I didn't fucking hire me. Like I hired him, you know. Like I don't fucking work for me. I don't know what these guys don't get about that. Like you know, it's yeah. But if you guys can all reach out to Steven and just get him stoked on. I need fucking termite mounds and shit, you know. Like
that'd be fucking.
It's
yeah. I mean the female lions The female lions do the hunting and catch the gazelle. Then they kill the fucker, and then they let the man lion eat.
Take over.
You know, Forrest is the man lion. He's not there to hunt. He's there to fucking eat.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Yeah, go get me my shit.
Give me my fucking
Yeah,
dinner.
go give me my shit. Give me my fucking termite mounds. I'm just here to breed lizards.
Go get the
Yeah, dude,
that
like,
shit, Steven.
Dude, I've been in this business for full-time 10 years in rodents, you know. It's like, it hasn't been pretty, dude. It's been shitty. So, now I'm here,
What
and it's
is
like
your
I got
rodent
Steven.
company?
Coldbloodedcafe.com right there. $30 flat rate shipping
Ah.
anywhere in the U.S. It's the good shit.
It's the best.
And then I just do
always
reptiles
go to
for fun.
Rodent Pro. You know, I always go to Rodent Pro, but it's just because I've always been going there. I've never
Yeah, they
branched out.
they're awesome. Well, and they got variety. I
So-
mean, I only do mice and rats, so it's like for
okay.
somebody that, yeah. But
Because normally I'll get like 1,000 baby, week-old chicks, and then just like 400 small rats, and that's like all I
yeah,
get. Because that's all I need.
Yep.
Yeah.
we're gonna have to start getting some more chicks. And
Yeah.
now, what about quail? Do you like quail?
I don't like quail just because the feathers don't digest. They don't break down, so they get stuck in the filters. Like, they're, I'm sure, well, you've obviously fed quails. Like, when they eat the quails, literally, they shit out, like, whole feathers.
Yeah.
And they're, like,
Yeah.
strong still. They're like a straw. So they just don't break down. They get stuck, like, sideways, and then they create, like, this mesh, in the filter areas, and they get stuck. Like, the chicken feathers, especially in the Croc monitors, the Croc monitors shit on the ground. They don't shit in the water, So the water monitors generally eat, some chicks. Onyx eats exclusively chicks, and then everybody else usually eats rats and chicks. But the feathers are so much smaller, especially because they're week-old chicks, that they just flow through everything, so they just kind of break down.
Right.
That's the only reason.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, Forrest can get some chicks going. That way, you can slowly start getting your stuff from Coldblooded Cafe, the number one
That'd be nice.
rodent supplier in the United States. I think they're the
Nice.
shit. They're awesome.
Hey man, it all we all work together. There's a bunch of rodent companies, and there's a lot of demand, and but no, it's not been an easy way to make a living. I should have just got a different job and just
I
be
couldn't do
balling
it.
out like
Just
you
the
guys.
smell, the
Fuck.
smell alone, and all those carbon filters and all that shit. Oh
Yeah.
my god,
It's heavy.
okay. I'm not gonna do
It's
it.
heavy.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Well, fuck.
I pity you, Steve.
Is he still awake?
You're doing all the work.
Kind of.
Fuck, dude. Well, look.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he's Silver Spoon. I mean,
Silver Spoon is
Yeah.
past his bedtime. He's fucking tired right now. Cory, happy Friday to you, man. I appreciate you fucking tuning in.
Hey, thank you.
And this was awesome.
Yeah.
This was awesome. We're gonna bring you on again. We could fucking stay on here for another 3 hours. I already know it. So, this was a good introduction on bringing you on. I appreciate you spending the time, spending your Friday night with us. I'm definitely gonna be in contact with you. I love bugging you because you live so close to me, and can't wait to come see your facility. I know Forrest can't wait to come see it again soon. But yeah, man, you're the fucking shit, man. Keep going, Cory. You're honestly, man. I look up to you highly. Forrest looks up to you highly. Steven's fucking whatever, but
Well, I appreciate that.
you're doing awesome shit, bro, and you got a lot of support, bro. You definitely got our support, and I know there's other people out there that support you just as big, man. So, cheers to you,
you're
bro.
big for sure. Big example,
thank
man.
you,
Keep
thank
doing
you.
what you're doing, bro.
Yep.
Thank you. I will. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it.
So Cory fucking from Toothless Reptiles in San Diego. I'm gonna put his fucking information in the description below. I'm gonna put his you have a business page on Facebook, so I'm gonna put that in there as well, and that way people can kind of just stay updated on your website and stay tuned and shit. Because like I said, I'll be one of the people to take advantage of a black dragon before you are just not selling them to fucking regular people anymore. But yeah, Cory.
Yeah, shout out to Josh Ortiz too. That guy's real good guy.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they can get him from him.
There was a lot of times where his hands were kind of tied because he was working at Nerd, and I don't hold any grudges over the business things that we had that didn't necessarily work out. So he's doing great. I've never had an issue with Josh. He's always been a really good
he's
guy.
part of the
and was-
podcast, right? Like Herpentime. I feel like I sponsor his podcast.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either,
exactly
but,
what he does. I just know that, you know, there's certain people in the reptile trade where they have enough resources to back up their product, and Josh is one of those people. So, you know, he's always been willing to back up all the stuff that he sells, which is a really nice feature in the reptile trade.
Yeah. And then, hey, guys, one more thing. Make sure you go and donate your items. Get set up for Carpet Fest, Southeast Carpet Fest at Cody Bartolini and Pia Bartolini's. It's all about nidovirus research. If you have any questions whatsoever, reach out to Ian Bissell from S&J Reptiles. Really trying to promote this this event so we can raise more money for nidovirus research, something that's affecting pythons. So
that's coming
trying to stay pumped on that.
That's coming from the fucking coolest reptile podcast that's out right now, okay? So let that be known. We got the coolest people that we're bringing on right now. I think Cory signified that we are the fucking coolest podcast out right now, because this interview was fucking choice. This interview was great, and like I said, we're looking forward to bring you on again. Hope everybody has a great night out there. Be safe. Don't fucking drink and drive, or don't fucking, don't be feeding and not paying attention, all that other good stuff. Just be safe and fucking, follow us on Instagram. Subscribe to this channel. We're new and shit, so if you please just let people know, fucking, we got this new
Don't herp and drive.
So, yeah, don't herp and drive. And herpes is real, so be careful with that too.
Yeah, it is. The gift that keeps on giving.
If you message MJ, and he yells at you, just message me then and tell me about it.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck getting a response from Forrest. Fuck, you better off keep reaching out to Kush. Reach out to Steven, because Forrest will reach out to you the day of the event. And, we'll
yeah, for sure.
Hey, dude, Cory, thanks again.
All right, love you guys.
Have a good night. You guys have a good night. Fucking shout out to everybody out there. We'll catch you on the next episode. We got a next big interview next week. We'll let you know who it is during the week. But all right, Cory, have a good night, bro. Steve, Forrest, you guys have a good night. Talk to you later.
You guys, thank you. Happy holidays.